Welcome everybody to the 250th episode of the DigiByte update. I'm joined today by a whole lot of my friends here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we have a lot to cover today. I'll let everybody go through and just introduce yourselves, say a little bit about yourself, and we'll get stuck into answering some of the questions, as well as some of our already kind of predefined topic points. So, do you want to kick us off there, Noah, and we'll go from there?
Hey everyone, this is Noah. Many folks from the DigiByte community know me. I wrote the Android DigiByte app a couple years back at this point, but it's still a beauty. I provide nowadays big macro thinking. Where does DigiByte fit into the big picture? What is this global world shaping up to be? And that's the topics that I like to think about, and more than happy to highlight how DigiByte's doing and where it fits into the big picture.
Who's next?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Crypty Girl. I'm a core member of the DigiByte awareness team, volunteer. I love DigiByte, and I consider myself a mobilizer. I love connecting with the community and everybody and just getting together to promote and advocate DigiByte. And I have a merch shop, premium apparel with DigiByte designs and things like that. So, yeah. All right, John, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm John. I am a core advisor to DigiByte, an investor and an institutional trader. I joined the community in 2019 and I help, different groups with different projects that are DigiByte related, and very happy to be here.
Awesome. Script Skynet, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Crypty Girl, for orchestrating the next person. I am Script Skynet. I'm a robot from the future, here to influence the DigiByte community.
Amen.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And you're also a member of the DigiByte awareness team.
Yes, I am. Next.
Why so secretive?
Well, my name is Matthew. I wrote the DigiID Antim-ID app. I'm the CEO of DigiAssetX, and I've been heavily working on the V3 version of DigiAssets lately.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much,
All right,
Matt.
so what I'm going to do is, sorry, I've just cut my video for just a moment because clever me forgot to plug in the Ethernet cable. So rather than everybody seeing me hopping around, we have a lot to cover. We've also got some more people going to join us really soon, hopefully as well. But I think probably one of the things that I wanted to start off with is asking Script Skynet why your YouTube channel, why you're changing the name.
Well, I know, all you don't watch my channel, but a lot of community members do. So I had a vote from Script Skynet. Hey, how do we become more friendly with YouTube and people that are attracted to DigiByte? So there was I did a vote. I had everybody throw up names, and one was Dirty Digis, one was Digiverse, and I think DigiByte hookers and all that. So we decided to go with Digiverse.
It was
Nice,
a better
man.
option.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Okay, so one of the things that I did want to get to, we have had a question in the live chat, and the question was, can we mine DigiByte on our refrigerator yet? I thought that was pretty cool. But in all honesty, actually, one day that may be possible, depending on what the refrigerator runs, but maybe that's something that either Matthew or Noah could specifically talk about there.
I think it's
know
actually
a lot more
inevitable.
about the coding side of things. Do you have anything to add to that?
Norton just put a miner in their newest version of Norton antivirus, so who knows?
That's true. Now that's a really good point. That was it last week or something? I saw that.
I think it was last week, yeah.
I think that would actually be really cool for DigiByte. Like one day I can. My heart gets warm thinking about that. Like one day DigiByte being a Norton antivirus as like a miner or as a blockchain that you can mine. I think that would be so cool. Cheesy, like really cheesy, but it's part of their sanctioned mining, and like how awesome would that be? There is such a huge market there. I mean, to be honest, it might centralize some of the mining a little bit, but
Well, that's cool though, because actually, mining, sure, but you can actually have a DigiByte compliant wallet on your Wi-Fi on your refrigerator, and just order the foods and goods that you need, and shoot, there you go. Drop it off at your front door and put it right into your refrigerator. Pay with DigiByte. Done.
I like it.
Hey, there are
I'd buy that.
difference of refrigerating off it using heat. So maybe we could actually put this into an exothermic system so that the heat created from the mining actually causes the cooling of the inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting. Like, could you imagine buying like a specific, like a heater that is your miner? Because I mean, that's something that I think you've talked about previously, is where you are in Canada. It can be relatively cool.
Yeah, that's how I heated my house for the last 2 years.
Well, with what your miners, like I know the ASICs, they blow out over time, give it a day or two, a lot of heat, and that's how I dry my clothes when they come out of the washer.
I had my mining equipment in Orlando. It was 3 kilowatts it was drawing. And it was Orlando, so it was in an apartment, so I was blasting the AC. I was literally paying to cool and paying for the mining, so it was obviously contradictory, but it was hot. It was a battle. That was a thermodynamic battle. 100 degrees outside.
Yeah. I'm running 9,000 watts of heat, and it heats the house nicely in the winter.
That's incredible.
But I got exhaust fans set up to blow the heat outside for when it's too much heat.
Yeah, the apartment complex would have been pissed if I drove through the wall.
Give me just 1 second. What I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly hit the save button here on some networking, and hopefully we all still stay connected here. So if not, I will be right back to you, and you can all just carry on with the... I think we're still live.
Technology.
Yeah, it's great fun, man. Aw.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, we're still...
So-
Nope, can't save the IP settings. Why not? Love me!
Love me.
All right.
So why not? It's why you get paid so much.
This is true. It's... Maybe we should, like, ring tech support. Like, that's the worst part, is... when you are the tech support itself. Oh, it's frustrating. And so in this kind of discussion, I suppose, specifically around algorithms and things like that, and around being able to mine, this is something that I know is obviously quite dear to a lot of our hearts, but did you want to kick this off, maybe, Matthew, in terms of talking about AutoCrypt 1.1?
Sure. Well, I'm sure hoping that it'll make it into version 8, but the idea with the AutoCrypt 1.1 was to make a small change to the AutoCrypt algorithm, keep the security aspects, but make it so that any existing hardware would not be able to do it unless it's programmed. So the idea was, like, the original AutoCrypt, using KCAC for its it's using the KCAC for its tables, which, if you look at the tables on the KCAC algorithm, they're all prime numbers, but the tables. So to keep with that idea, we created the first 60,000 primes instead of the first 64 primes like used in the when it started. And I think you're frozen.
No, we're still here. Sorry.
We're good. We're good.
Was that me that was chopped out, or you?
Yeah, no, that was
Little
me just being
choppy.
official. I finally managed to hit the OK
You're a
button.
little choppy.
You were saying
But we got it all.
Primes on the...
Basically, all we're doing is
Oh.
basically the concept is we took the idea behind it and made a random version of it that wouldn't work with traditional hardware.
Well, that's powerful.
The interesting thing will be to see if this actually changes anything, because there's a debate there are ASIC mining.
Well, so we'll ensure that the particular hardware desired is the equipment executing for mining purposes, and that's valuable.
It's obviously really difficult to kind of restrict it in a lot of ways and basically prevent people and say, well, you can only mine this on FPGAs. We don't want you to make an ASIC. That's really difficult to get to that kind of... And that's why there's been so many attempts at all of these different algorithms.
I'm not up on all the mining because I haven't been mining DigiByte, just like buying and holding it. But what are the main devices that would be mining on AutoCrypt?
So at the moment, we know for certain that the black miner stuff is. They have like the F1 and the F1 Ultra, and in fact, some of the recent mining pools we know for a fact they've told a couple of people specifically. And I was helping one of them to integrate DigiByte. They're actually using the black miner F1 Ultra, I believe it is. So we know that it's still profitable depending on your power, and it's still doable. But at the same time, this is something I was actually talking with Matthew about beforehand, just before this, is it just makes sense for us to do the upgrade because we've got two possibilities here. So possibility number one is there's ASICs. And cool, this will fix that up and we'll be back to just having FPGAs. Or the other possibility is that there's no ASICs, and this change in that case isn't going to affect FPGA miners because it's easy to reprogram them. So either way, it's a win, really. So it just makes a lot of sense.
That's cool. Thank you.
I mean, all I dream about is a house at the bottom of a mountain right next to a stream, water power, and all I have to do is buy a bunch of equipment, and you just eliminate the cost of electricity,
yep. And
you have your revenue stream. And that is what we're doing in other countries, and that's what they're doing in El Salvador, and it's an extraordinary reality. And, you know, folks get hung up.
The Mennonites do? Isn't that what the Mennonites do? No? Natural
you live off the land, of course. Yeah. Whether it's geothermal, then you don't necessarily need to be near a volcano for geothermal energy. But there's plenty of opportunities, and that's an entire way of life.
Yeah, because they don't rely on the power grid. They actually, they build log cabins where I'm from up north, and they generate their own electricity through water somehow. I haven't personally watched it, but you know how the Mennonites are, or the Amish. They're really strict. They live off the land.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is a stream of water, just a flow of water. It's a powerful source.
I think you're confusing Mennonite and Amish.
Well, no, the Mennonites...
I know a Mennonite programmer.
So I have a lot of Mennonites that live above me, just north of me, and they literally build log cabins without any electricity. They generate their own power with water. They take their... whatever they made... Because they actually build, they actually heat homes with no electricity. They heat homes, but they take their machine that they build and they put it in a creek, and then they generate their own power to build cabins. But the Amish are probably more hardcore than that. They probably don't even build anything. They just, put nails in the cabin with their teeth.
The whole point is the world is changing, and the way capital is generated and financials are executed. The payment rails, the networks, it's all changing. And what's most pertinent is the time horizon. It's still years away. Is the meeting okay? Oh, Josiah, you fixed it. Unlimited minutes. and DigiByte has a role in that.
While I was in the hospital.
The hardest thing with DigiByte is the time horizon, and the beauty of it is it has unlimited time horizon. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, actually, I don't really think I have anything specifically to add to that. I think you're right, and I think that's yeah. One of the things I do want to get to, though, is I've got a bunch of these up on my screen here. So let me go, because I do want to start going through some of our some of the questions that we've got. Particularly, so one of the questions was around mobile apps and where we see the future with those. And this is probably something that Noah is best equipped to answer. Where do you see any changes needed to those? I know that we've kind of got our problem that Matthew's brought up a few times with our recovery. But specifically, what are your thoughts around the future of those mobile applications?
Cryptocurrencies shouldn't be stored in a software wallet, in my opinion. They should be stored in a hardware wallet, and Ledger is extremely powerful and fully functional. To support digi-assets, sure, software, and that's fine, which could have value, but which assuredly will have value, which is exactly what we see in the NFT space. So everything that everyone understands about NFTs is entirely applicable to the scope and potential for digi-assets in all regards. How we store them is a complexity. Clearly, we would want to store them in a hardware wallet, but I don't think financials and the raw DigiByte should be used at a software level. That's my opinion. Because NFTs, you need to view them, so there needs to be that's perfectly suited for a mobile device.
Unless we get an actual, like, a nice wallet there on like a hardware wallet with a screen that's specific. It's still got to be connected, and if it's connected, it kind of just it makes the whole point redundant, really, of having a separate device. Like, what's the point at that stage?
And it's complicated because technically the digi-assets are connected to a DigiByte transaction, which is basically the same thing as DigiByte itself. So it's kind of intrinsically connected. It's just digi-asset is a DigiByte transaction with metadata attached. So I don't know. The whole point being, we don't know. We know that the best way to store data securely is on a hardware device, and to view that data is on a software user interface.
Here we go. Now Matthew's coming back. That's one of the things I wanted to specifically ask him about is then kind of leading on from that is digi-assets and like the future there. And so this is something that I know that Script Skynet, you were talking about in your live stream earlier on in the week. What do you want to kind of tell us something about what's going on there, Matthew? You have frozen a little bit there. Looks like you might be having Wi-Fi problems there.
Yes.
Which I know all about, given the Wi-Fi problems that I've got here right now.
Same with me.
Coming through clear.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah.
I just switched over to LTE because my Wi-Fi apparently isn't working.
Yeah. So, did you want to talk a little bit about what's been going on with digi-assets? And I have a friend who's just shown up. I feel like he's about to walk in with a coffee.
That's a wonderful thing.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Well,
We're just live. We're having a video at the moment. This is a friend of mine.
Hi, friend of mine.
Thanks,
Nice.
Joel.
They come with coffee.
Yeah.
Come on, someone come quick, please. It's
Some
not happening.
donuts. I want donuts. I want-
Thanks, man.
Well, Josiah gets his own servant.
I'll see you later, man. Have a good one. Thanks a lot.
that's pretty great.
Man, that's the VIP treatment right there. Sorry, you were saying about digi-assets X-Men.
Well, with the digi-assets, it was originally developed, and the people that developed it was pretty cool what the idea came about.
Yep.
But the implementation had some major limitations, and I started finding these when I started searching the network, and I found a ton of dropped connections that it just essentially ended up in things burning. So I rewrote everything, but I think a lot of the big things that people are interested in that it never got implemented in the first place, but got talked about, were things like the ability to put on a royalty on the transaction, or the ability to or have everything distributed, not be centralized to a single server and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I've spent a bunch of time in thinking about these ideas and how to encode them so that they're actually encoded on the chain. All the important stuff's encoded on the chain, but none of the extra stuff isn't. So one of the things in the original DigiAssets encoding is it was encoding both the SHA-1 and I think it was an MD5 of it. I got rid of the one because it was totally redundant and not useful. So we just kept the SHA-256 of the data. I actually copied all the original assets over to IPFS, so they're all distributed, which I just recently published a server so people can help the network. But the other thing is I built in a mechanism of encoding in forced royalties and things like that into your assets. So that way, anyone going through the chain can actually, without looking at any of the metadata, can see, yeah, this needs a royalty, is it there, yes or no, and keep going, processing all the transactions. Right. And to make things easy, I made a copy of all the data available for everyone.
Nice. So like to summarize, a couple of the really key points here, especially so the number one key point is the reliability. That's going to be a lot better. We've got the redundancy, which is the result of number one. We've got additional features such as royalties and things like that. And there was a couple of others. Sorry, I am still waking up. Hence my friend bringing in the coffee here.
Everything of importance being on chain, so that you can process all transactions solely looking at the chain data. Because that's an important thing that for the metadata is all extra stuff, but that should be meant for humans to read, not for machines.
Right.
So I think the original idea was to put the royalties and all that in the metadata, but those processing the transaction should never have to look at the metadata.
Yeah. Which no, go ahead.
Is in all the metadata you're envisioning being stored in IPFS?
I'm already copying. I've copied all the version 2 assets over to IPFS, and I am promoting the all new assets to put everything on IPFS. Actually, I was just going through a lot of the assets today, and there's already a lot where the links don't work anymore because they're just lost.
Could you break down a significance of the original DigiAsset server? What was its role, and has that been eliminated and decentralized?
I've completely eliminated the need for that server now. The importance was it actually held all the metadata information, and it processed all the transactions. So I have duplicated the feature of processing all the transactions and made that available through an S3 bucket. So which gives us huge bandwidth capability because everyone can just download like crazy from Amazon. But at the same time, anyone can process it themselves.
Extraordinary.
No, when you say extraordinary, it really moves me. You know that?
Well, you guys, that was
the importance of IPFS.
Right.
That was the biggest. That was the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you go on DigiAssets GitHub, there is the first thing on there now, because it's the most recent I updated. There is the metadata server. If everyone ran that, it just makes it so that there's lots and lots of nodes on the IPFS network for wallets and stuff to download the metadata.
Guys, this needs to be in the core wallet. Just bootstrap it on. Matthew, you have single-handedly facilitated the establishment of DigiAsset infrastructure. that happens, literally you're talking about just viewer software, websites, mobile devices, and that's modeling off like OpenSea and the success of the NFT community, and that's extraordinary.
And all of this is being published open source. So like I've compiled it for ease so that there's just an exe file or whatever Mac calls. I don't think there's an extension for Mac, but there you can just run the file and it'll do it, but it's open source. It could be combined into the wallet, though I don't think it will for the sake of keeping things separate. But it doesn't need to be, but it makes things good and easy, and I really want to start getting the mobile wallet to start integrating some of the new features, because accessing through S3 and IPFS is very easy and quick. Should be a pretty easy. And then it doesn't require that server that occasionally makes mistakes and just doesn't do a transaction.
I can't stand that damn server. But so this is one of the things that I've been talking with. Like I tried to get so Jared and GTO90 on board with this, and this is one of the things that I was having a chat with them and Yoshi specifically about this. Yoshi seemed a lot more interested in it because he's going to have to make some of the underlying changes to work with this new protocol. He seemed kind of on board with it, but I'm so excited for like all of these reasons that you've just summed up, and it needs to be in the mobile wallet as far as I'm concerned. I think it's great. I think this is huge, really. You said, you fixed all of the big pain points there, so for that reason alone, like there is no downside. Just to clarify for the people that are watching, there's no downside to this, really, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe you can clarify there for us. Is there a downside?
It's 99.999% backwards compatible with version 2. There was one asset that somebody created with more than 2 to the power of 64 assets in their supply. This should not ever have been allowed by the original version 2 protocol, and I did not keep it.
So because it was technically an invalid asset, it's still technically an invalid asset, even though we did permit it? Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
And the thing is, it never even got moved, so I don't really worry about it. Somebody obviously created it and then abandoned it because probably no wallet could possibly handle it because of the over 2 to the 64.
Do you know what the name was of the asset? Because I wonder if that was mine when I was mucking around with things.
I do not know offhand. I do believe I sent it to you on Telegram, though.
It was possibly me being a smartass about the American inflation and things like. In which case, don't worry about it. I'm not going to be mad that it's.
So, quick question.
I did.
Oh, go ahead, Matthew.
No, go ahead. What's your question?
When you make a digi asset, when you mint a digi asset with digi asset X, is it going to be completely decentralized and not rely on any servers? Like in the future, if a server is shut down, would you still have your digi assets, or is it still decentralized? Because I know there are NFTs being minted that are in a way relying on the place they were minted, and if that website got shut down, then your NFTs would actually be gone. So I'm just wondering if we're good with digi assets.
Yes, so with the version 2 is done like that, where whoever's hosting the asset, the actual files are not in the asset itself. So with version 3, the recommended way, and the way my code does, is it all pushes to the IPFS network so that it is available for everyone. It's decentralized. It's not at one single location. And on top of that,
okay.
I've taken the decentralized point even more. The digi asset creator I've made is not run on my servers. It's not run on the Digi Asset X platform. It is actually the nodes that you can download now. The asset creator will be right in that program and created on your own device.
That's great. That's so good to hear.
IPFS is, Christy, is computer planetary file storage. So whereas peer-to-peer transactions, where
that's what IPFS stands for.
Yes.
Gosh, thank
Well,
you.
I think it's system,
I know I'm
not
still
storage.
learning so much of this.
This
So
guys is
then-
massive.
Whoever has DigiAssetX on their device, are they also basically like running a node, like decentralizing the server storage, or?
Well, this one software I wrote, it basically what it does is it's using my server, but that can be always changed. It's open source. It's using my server to make it easy, but it downloads all the metadata from every single asset that exists, and your server will then start sharing it with everyone that asks for it.
I think that's quite important
very
right now as
cool.
well, is because the existing setup is not doing that like it was originally intended to. And so I remember you asking me specifically for the associated torrent files and things like that, and you've had to go through, if memory serves me right, and rebuild them from scratch. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually, using the API calls to the server, I managed to figured out how they were originally created and rebuilt them.
Oh, those API calls.
They're good that they exist, but boy, was that a pain because nobody knew how it worked.
They were quite unreliable. And obviously the parameter types, and they were very inconsistent.
I remember all the times Noah sending me these messages going, okay, we've just fixed this. And now this other thing, doesn't work now.
Well, you'll like that I've completely opened for the asset creation and asset transactions, and that I've actually written my code and I've written it all from scratch, so it's all easy to follow.
Wow.
Those that are really heavily object-oriented will hate me because I did it all mostly in a straight line, but
Well,
it also makes it
actually
easy
had
to
a
read.
question, Matthew, for the asset creator itself. What can you talk? Are you able to talk about what it might look like? What's the capabilities in that? Because I don't know too much about that, because I just know what you're open and talk about with all the questions that are being asked in the AssetX.
So my existing code at present, you can create your asset. So you pick your address. I recommend everyone KYC the address that it's being created from, because then the system will show that it's actually from a known entity. So I'm building in I have already written the program to actually do the KYC, a verification of people, and then send encoded messages to the chain to allow people to see this. But on the asset creator itself, which I should mention is all open source, so people can add more features and change it as they want.
Oh, nice.
It has the ability to set the rules you want. Rules can be, there's rules such as you can require people to co-sign all transactions. This was put in place because for example, DigiAssetX's articles of incorporation require, if you were to sell shares, you actually have to have approval by the board. So for reasons like that, these asset creator allows those kind of rules to be put into the asset itself too.
That's so cool.
They're also, and you have the ability to restrict assets to you can either blacklist or whitelist countries, and it can be made so the assets can only be sent to people of nationality of those certain countries.
Wow.
That's an optional rule, of course. You can set royalties in any currency. So you can set the royalties are always paid in DigiByte, but you can set it. DigiAssetX tracks 20 currencies, 10 fiat and 10 cryptocurrencies. You can set those prices, or you can even add your own currency monitoring address, as long as you follow the same protocols I use for publishing the currencies. And you can set it up your own currency. You can even call it your own Bob currency, because it doesn't really matter, and you can change it at will.
Oh, I got Bob.
That's cool.
What else rules are there? You can set voting assets.
Yeah, this is one that intrigued me. Go ahead.
So with the voting assets, you can define multiple addresses. I have created 50 addresses for the defaults. You can change them if you want, but if you use the defaults, my server will tally up the votes for you. And when people send the assets to that, it'll keep track of the votes. You can also restrict it so that people can only send to the voting assets, so they cannot share it with a friend who can then vote on your behalf. So that's an optional. You can set the expiry date. You can set it so the assets expire on a certain date, which makes it so that they cannot be transferred after the expiry.
Nice.
So there's quite a few different rules. Oh, and you can make assets that are deflationary. So you have to burn a certain number of assets to transfer them.
Can you explain a little bit about that? I talked to a few leaders and they were like totally against burning.
Well, these rules are all optional, and whether what people want to do or not. But you could, for example, create your Bob token, and you can make it so that to send any quantity of assets, you must burn one asset each time. So the total supply keeps shrinking as people move them around.
Right. Okay.
What do you think I'm thinking, John? I'm thinking about currency. Oh, that's extraordinary, Matthew. It really is.
Actually, every rule that he's mentioned actually fits well with currency, like regions, people, citizens, KYC.
Well, I was trying to help comply with some of the laws for securities and making up some of the rules. And then some of them, like the deflationary, I just stole for beef.
You didn't take that from the Fed because they don't know anything about that.
No.
Matthew, did you just come up with all of them on your own? Like, what inspired you to add the features that you did?
Well, some of them were just, I was trying to look at the security laws and trying to comply with that in some way. We can't completely comply with everything, but if you were to, for example, put in the rule that you need a cosigner, you could pretty much comply with all of the security laws that way, because you could pretty much lock down somebody's inability to send by not signing. And then
you mentioned
there are laws that are...
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, well, we were in a conversation, and it's been popped up several times there. Two questions. One, I've always heard you say something about it depends on compliancy law with the province, city, or state, or country with assetizing your house. And another thing is KYC protected from getting hacked.
Well, the KYC service I've set up, all the data is stored offline. It's not being stored on servers. It's being stored on multiple memory sticks and stored in multiple safes. It's there, so if the government comes knocking on the door, I can hand it to them, but otherwise, no hacker or anyone else can do it. The main reason is, if you are a legitimate person, you really shouldn't have any worries. But if you create an asset that is a total scam, you're not going to want to go through the KYC process, because that's going to make it easy for people to get you.
Yeah, use another platform, please.
Yeah, we don't want you.
And then the second question was the assets, assetizing a house or a bike. I guess you replied with, that pertains to local law or state law or country law.
Yeah, I'm still going to answer that, because I can't really say whether or not any government would accept asset as legal ownership. That is something for the lawyers to fight out, and I am sure that lawyers are going to fight it out at some point, because the assets definitely have that use. The problem is proving that it was actually created by the legal owner to start with, and that all parties are known and stuff like that. So that'll be a fun one for the courts to see.
How can we prove that with the blockchain with
DigiByte?
Well,
ID number?
so with the the KYC process, you have a somewhat of a proof, but I'm not going to say for sure that we can't guarantee that the person verify is who they say they are. We do our due diligence to the best of our ability, but that's only to be taken as a reference and not as proof.
No, it's a mutable asset, and the public key is an owner attribute, and therefore I possess my private key. Therefore, I could prove that I'm currently assigned the ownership role of the asset.
Yeah, and
Pretty
through
straightforward.
DigiID, we can verify. We can easily prove that somebody owns an asset.
Guys, I'm telling you right now, I got a property I'm trying to sell in New York, and it's probably going to take 2-3 months, and it is absurd. I should be able to find someone to want to buy it. They pay me, and I transfer it to them via a digi asset, or we could label it a fungible token, a partially fungible token. And it's over the years, it's an inevitable method for tax authorities to consume blockchain tech for means of property records. Because if I have to look at a piece of paper when I sell this property, I'm going to cringe and I'm going to scream, "What are you guys doing? Where's the NFT? Where's the digital signing equipment?"
I really hate that the banks don't have any good security systems. Like, why is it I cannot use my YubiKey to log into my bank?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this should be standard on all financial institutions, that I need my ledger, my YubiKey to log into the bank to prove, because this whole SMS 2FA sucks.
Oh, it's the worst. We've got that here. Almost every bank in New Zealand uses SMS 2FA, and despite sending the messages, the typical response is, "That's just the way that it is." I'm like, but that doesn't mean it needs to stay that way.
They don't value you.
Yeah.
So I think,
But thankfully,
sorry, go ahead.
thankfully, GitHub and Gmail both accept it. So
Yeah.
we're getting
Yes,
somewhere.
they do.
So
Last
there's a
pass.
couple of things just to clarify for some people. So specifically, number one of the questions that was asked in the chat is, do we need to now download another wallet to support this new version? And the answer is hopefully not. This is one of the things that I was talking about before. Hopefully we are going to simply be able to take the existing Android and iOS wallets and do like a transparent upgrade. The other thing is someone's asked what other wallets are going to support this, and I know that Matthew and I have talked about things in the past. I'm not sure if we want to be saying anything due to reasons, but there are people that we are talking with, not just the current wallets themselves. Did you want to add anything to that yourself?
Well, I know Koinomi is very interested in adding support, so they just need developers. Anyone interested?
Help us out. Yeah, like, so I wasn't sure if we were going to say anything. Like, we're in the chat with them and things, and the guys there are super cool, so fingers crossed, with a little bit of luck, we'll see that eventually.
Hey, man, have you
think
guys ever
eventually-
considered creating your own wallet?
I am actually, yes. I have started. I haven't gotten very far because I've been very busy, but that is
It
on
sounds
my
like
to-do list.
you've been busy.
Now, what would that might look like?
Cool.
What might that look like? Because I know we talked about it and had, kicked it around for a while.
Well, at this point, it's just objects, so there's no visual.
Right.
So basically,
Eventually we can make it look pretty.
Yeah. That'll be somebody else's job to make it pretty. I do.
Hey, this is gonna be a long process, guys.
Good
Hopefully
things take
not too
time.
long.
I want blue steel. I told you, blue steel border.
That would be sleek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, speaking of making things look pretty, maybe this is a good opportunity for us to briefly touch on something else that has been put forward. So there's been talk about adding like a visual refresh to the upcoming version 8. Now, actually, if I got this person's name here, because that would be super helpful if I did. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can bring this up. Because somebody has gone through and actually given us kind of like a visual refresh and what it might look like. I'm just trying to find Oral Melly has given us a
You
visual
mean it won't be white
refresh.
text on black background?
Sorry, one more time?
I said it won't be just white text on a black background. That's what my putty looks like.
Pretty like calculator.
Yeah, just like... no, so this is actually... this went off... we've previously had a friend of DigiByte's go through and do the design for the Android and iOS wallets. This is like an acquaintance of theirs in this instance. And they've basically come back and given us... I don't really want to say too much because obviously this is going to be the kind of thing that we'll need to go through a pull request in the future. But they've given us some ideas for future logos, look and feel, gradients, all of the kind of existing artwork and things that we've got. A look and feel for the core wallet. Actually, I might have a core wallet somewhere, a link to an earlier design. I'll see if I can bring that up. But we've had a couple of designs over the years. I have a feeling this older design is not likely to be one that we're going to end up going with, but this new design is very much a visual refresh in line with a lot of the other things that we're seeing. Now, this particular person has done user interface work and things for other like top 5 crypto exchanges and stuff like that, so it's pretty slick. And I guess one of the things that I want to gauge from the people that are currently in the chat right now, what are your thoughts? Like, so we can see here, Chris has said the Nexus wallet is sexy. Do we want to like just leave a note in the chat and let us know what wallet you like the looks of, and if you are interested in the idea of like a visual refresh and an upgrade for it, or if you are a big fan of just the way that DigiByte looks now in the core wallets and with the logo. So this is completely like, don't get me wrong, there is nothing like final about this. Obviously, this is very much just engaging a little bit of sentiment here for a bit of fun while we're in the chat with this video. But yeah, like let us know in the chat if you are interested in the idea of a visual refresh.
Oh, bread wallet, guys.
Bread wallet?
No.
It's interesting that people mentioning Nexus, because Nexus is actually 2 apps in one. The wallet itself is completely separated from the front end.
Okay.
Which can be annoying in that the back end can crash and the front end just looks like it's running.
Wow.
And yeah, so I know that Noah's a big fan of the Bread wallet, which our Android and iOS apps are based off of.
Matthew tells you how it is, and then you just gotta take it in, absorb it. You can't get offended. You gotta take it.
You can't ask me about what things look. I joke about the wallet because literally my wallet for my core wallet is text only. I type in commands.
Yeah, calculator.
I do not have the GUI running.
No MySpace wallet. Dang.
I like the look of our DigiByte wallet now. I think it looks great.
The Android one, or are you talking about like the core one, or
iPhone DigiByte mobile wallet?
Yeah, I think we're talking about the core wallet, which is a very 90s look.
What about you, John? What are your thoughts, man?
I haven't seen that. What?
Yeah, John.
About what?
About the idea in general of a refresh of the look and feel.
I think, if the community really wanted something like that, we could kind of, have discussions around that, and I think you leave it up to the community. If the community really has a strong push for that, and they want to kind of, you want to really do it right? You want to create guidelines. You don't want just people to just kind of post up images and logos. You really want, if people really want to participate in this process, it has to be a very rigorous process where they submit based on, requirements that are set, all the different types of logos, the different, if they're the vertical, horizontal, different colorings, different transparencies, all those things. If they want to go through that and they feel like it's something that they want to do, then, it's community driven. I think then, we can kind of help by gathering requirements and putting maybe something that together that looks like, an example of what they need to submit, and then we can go there. But
Yeah,
in my opinion, it's based on what everybody wants. I'm easy. It's just for me. I don't think we need a refresh, but again, I'm not against that. There's so many things that we do need, right? So that's one of the things I think it would be kind of a nice to have versus a need to have. But
yeah.
If the community is behind it, I think we can go ahead and kind of figure out how to get that process going, and that way everyone can participate.
We should get that up on GitHub, or maybe even on Gitter actually is potentially worthwhile as well. I think that's one of the things that you and I talked about before. Was we'd specifically talked about the idea that because there's so much that we have proposed for version 8, this seems like a nice opportunity to bring along with it something visual to represent all of the under the hood changes that we've got that are lined up. And again, you're absolutely right about none of this is specifically set in stone and things. And so I want to specifically reiterate that for the people who are watching. This is the kind of thing that, again, going back to what I've said in almost every single video, go along to the GitHub and hit the watch button so that you can participate and you can have your say directly in, should this be implemented, should this not be implemented, why, even if you're just basically saying, yeah, I like this, or specifically as Crypty was saying, actually, I like the way that the Android and iOS wallets look. They look slick and things like that, rather than the core wallet, for example. I don't know. But that's the kind of thing that we want you to have your say on and to be able to participate in, like John's saying. We want that broader participation. Actually, you know what I will do? I'll chuck the GitHub link in there right now.
I did mention several skins, and I don't think, I think Matthew would agree with me where the core wallet is subject to the Bitcoin wallet, core wallet, and I don't think multiple skins would work, so that's out of the question.
Well, if you're going to make it pretty, you might as well make it template-based so people can just write their own templates.
I like that.
Well,
I'd like to do that for mobile.
Yeah, dark theme all the way.
Dark theme.
Oh, dark. Definitely dark.
Dark theme all the way.
Android devs Darkula. That's what it's called. Yeah, I want to put up some proposals on that GitHub. There's some things I want to see gotten done with. You gotta get rid of the SPV, in my opinion. You gotta have a nice light
We're gonna
wallet.
see some PRs from Noah coming up. I like that.
Well, with the V3, I do have the complete all chain data. Everything is available in that bucket, so you can keep the SPV, but you can have the quick sync by just streaming the data out of the bucket.
Yeah, I want more. We can do better. What I want to do is figure out if.
Oh, where'd you
There
go?
is.
Figure out
one
how he
downside.
leaves us hanging.
Noah, he's like, listen here.
Yep.
Say again, Noah.
There we go.
back.
Here he is. He's back.
There is one
You're
downside
saying we
to my
can do
bucket.
better.
we
and
can do
then-
better.
I think a mixture
no-
of the SCV and my bucket would be really good, because then you can have the quick sync, but you also have the up to the second data from there. The one downside with my bucket is it's about 6 blocks behind. No, and that's on purpose.
Which is 90 seconds in the grand scheme of things. It's not that bad for the majority of scenarios.
Yeah,
That does have
it's
some
behind,
UI
though, to
complexities.
prevent rollbacks.
Yeah.
That's
Which
what I'm
makes
saying.
sense.
The UI would probably have complexities, is what I was trying to get at with
Yeah,
the
but-
update core wallet.
Can we
Well,
just
creation
have
time
the
delay.
wallets sync with your local nodes? Like if you run a node, like you can kind of set it to connect to your own node. Can we do that?
I think you can
Super
actually, but
fast
it's
sync.
hidden.
Yeah, it
They
is.
don't
It's
want
hidden in
it
the
to
advanced
be.
settings at the moment, so you can't actually. It's not. I think Noah, you can probably correct me. You need to go into the settings and then hit you've got to tap 5 times if memory serves me right or something.
Secret code.
Memory might serve you right, but it's not recommended functionality wise with the existing application. But I do have a question, Matt. What do you think about IPFS Explorer?
Yeah, you can do it. There's already a few out there, but
Well, that's what I'm talking about, guys. Once you have an IPFS Explorer and your asset implementation, the decentralized components, goodbye. Mhm.
the node already is pretty much like an Asset Explorer, because if you download it, run it, it creates a web interface which shows all the metadata for every single asset in existence.
Well, we also want the hierarchy of transactions. So I'm just envisioning, like, relative to the existing product, you would have your transactions, but also aggregated sequentially, time historically is your asset transmissions. And that'd be nice, but the problem is, in the existing product, it's extensively over-engineered. It's too heavyweight. A mobile wallet / viewer need not be as complicated as it has been done. In my older years in programming, I'm a big advocate of simplification, and over-engineering is highly frowned upon. My biggest question I probably have is if I could pull the DigiByte address from a Ledger wallet over Bluetooth. I don't know if that would have to go through the Ledger Live app.
That'd be cool.
Or that would change everything, because now we don't need any storage whatsoever in the application. Everything would be in memory, and we're just pulling down whatever needs to be displayed from an IPFS sourced Explorer. Be real-time display.
With Bluetooth?
Well, you could do that already, pretty much.
Yeah,
you should take a look at my list of what data. I have 600 gigabytes of data that are available for you to quickly download and stream to your device.
Well, I don't need 600 gigabytes. I just need the visual set of transactions that fits on the screen, based on the current block height.
I have every single address that has ever been used, a list of all transactions, min-max values. I have pretty much anything you can think of, all the assets associated with it. I also have every asset ID. You can see the all list of transactions. You take a look at how much data I have available for you. It's a huge amount. And
we need to decentralize, though. If we're going to put it into a product, it needs to be IPFS available.
The decentralized is ideal, yes, but from a mobile wallet, that makes it hard. Now, we do have the entire Amazon network providing bandwidth for it. So I don't think decentralization is too huge a problem, but...
Thank you.
Well, since you offer it...
We did have a request from Sherrod, and thank you for the super chat there. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. All I ask is that you add Neuralink ability.
Oh, man.
We're plugging it in.
We'll get onto that. That beats Bluetooth, right? Like, why would you need Bluetooth if you can just...
Matrix.
What are we, Johnny Mnemonic? And we got our Ledger.
Yes, I remember that. The dolphin swimming in the tank, like...
Of course.
The smartest Neuralink. I forget
what was it like. Did he have like 32 megs in his head? I gotta watch that movie and see how many megs he had in his head.
Yeah, I forget what the dolphin's name, but he like controlled everything.
Huh.
Well, that just makes sense.
Yeah, the dolphin.
I don't want to put my faith in a dolphin. I mean, dolphins are really cool, but like all the data and stuff.
Echolocation. They're freaking smart.
And what happens when the dolphin like swims away and your data's gone? Then you're just
no, you trap it in a tank. Like you plug it full of wires.
Well, no, we don't do that. He was just a very smart dolphin. Augmented. I want those augmentations also.
Augmented dolphin.
Yeah. They were ahead of their time. DigiDolphin. We can do it.
I actually saw DigiDolphin in one of the chat rooms somewhere.
I did see that too, John.
I think that was in the meme chat.
Wow.
Well, maybe while we're on the topic of the mobile applications, perhaps it's worth talking about the possibility of CPU-based mining in the future. So this is one of the things that, if we implement RandomX, it would permit you to do CPU-based mining. I know that Matthew's less of a fan. Noah, you've talked about it being possible. Can I get both of your thoughts?
I'm only not a
around
fan when there's a
mining?
lithium battery beside it.
Yeah, I mean we've seen the MacBooks swelling and things in the past.
Oh, listen, here's the deal. If we could facilitate a way cheaply for people around the world to make 20 to 50 cents a day using some sort of moderately decent hardware, come on, anything, that's massive. That's when you get like foundations around the world involved, because that changes people's lives.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I do like CPU mining. I just
collects.
don't like lithium batteries by CPU mining.
Yeah,
Nobody does. Yeah.
take your batteries out first, or I don't know.
Yes.
I want a windmill mining. Now we're talking.
Volcano mining.
Yeah.
How does that work, by the way? It just pulls in the heat, right? It doesn't really.
No, it's just geothermal. It's the same way it works in every power plant. It's basically steam comes out of the ground, turns turbines, generates electricity.
Okay.
Simple.
Enough.
Yeah.
Why aren't
Volcano.
we doing
Simple.
that more often? There's not enough activity.
Well, we don't.
You could
Not
use
a
heat pumps, but that'd
volcanoes.
be expensive.
Yes.
We can
I
drill.
mean, theoretically, if you drill down deep enough, literally the temperature is there, and the differential between the temperature at the bottom of the well and the temperature at the surface of the surface of the Earth. That's how you generate electricity. That's how standard geothermal works. You don't have to be right by a volcano.
Yeah. In fact, it's been shown. Some people have figured if you were to make a floating city with 100-meter piles down into the ocean, the difference between the bottom of those piles and the top would give you an unlimited power source.
Whoa.
Interesting.
I believe
That's
we should be there right
think
now,
about.
Matthew. I don't know what the hang-up is.
Well, there's already books and stuff that have been written using this kind of technology, but making a 100-meter structure, though, is not easy to start with.
Well, we just have to
No.
congregate with those princes. Hey, Prince. Would you like to spend some capital?
No, they build those islands. They're going to build this. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
They just got to fix the financial
Floating
system first.
cities Giving you
Why not?
power.
Yeah. Problem is, it's not profitable. Or maybe it is. But if it was profitable, it would be done. That's always the way it is.
Well, it's expensive
It
to build.
depends who it's profiting too.
How
Yeah,
needs
that's
to
a fair
profit the
point.
billionaires?
The institutional investors, no.
Like there's a lot of technology that we should have today that we don't because it's not profiting the right people.
Well, I just
Well,
want my
it
lacing
costs
shoes
money
from
to
Back to the
build.
Future.
Huh?
They
I just
made
want my
those, though.
automatically lacing shoes from Back to the Future. Like, I feel cheated.
Yeah, they're available for sale.
Yeah, well, they're close. It's not quite
we
the
got
same.
Velcro.
It's
We
a
got
minimum
Velcro.
viable product.
We still don't have the
I
hoverboard.
did make a pair of shoes that did it. And we have the hoverboard too.
Do we? Oh yeah. Well,
Yes.
I think I saw
Look up
something.
Handu hoverboard. They built a hoverboard that hovers over any non-ferrous metal.
Okay, tell you what. We'll skip the hoverboard.
Superconducting.
Go straight to the flying Iron Man.
Yeah, somebody already made that too.
I know.
Yeah, the
Let's do it.
military
It's not
bought that.
practical, but it's definitely not practical for military applications. Any kind of suit like that, because like if Iron Man was real life, he would have been killed on the first time he got hit. That one tank round hit him, and that would have liquefied him. G-forces, you can't cheat them.
Yeah, he would have never lived a day to see nanotechnology. He would have straight melted.
Oh wow, that's interesting. What are the
So,
comments?
algorithms, right? Is that what we're talking about? So CPU, we discussed volcano mining. We also got progPOW mining, though. Wouldn't that more decentralize the pie chart, like the Wheel of Fortune chart?
Hopefully, you never know though.
Yeah.
Speculative.
I suppose to kind of add on to that, Hopefully, yes. The problem is at the moment there is a barrier to entry. So if I want to right now start mining, and this kind of comes back to what we were, someone asked me in the Twitter comments about staking. If you want to mine right now on DigiByte, you gotta have money, and you gotta have a lot of it, because as I suppose a number of you know, to buy an ASIC miner, it's not cheap, or even an FPGA, like the Black Miner
You're
F1
looking at
Ultras.
$2,000 for.
Sorry, what was that there, Matthew?
I said you're looking at about $2,000 to buy a decent machine.
Yeah. So
Brand new.
$2,000 is great, but it means that you've got to have that as a disposable income, because you're buying it to effectively expect future returns on that $2,000. The idea is that not only do you have to make that $2,000 back, but you've also got to make back the power costs on top of it. So if you have something like a GPU or a CPU, those are effectively commodity hardware. A lot of people already have them, even in their laptops. I know you're not a fan, obviously, of the batteries there in laptop mining, but on your desktop computer, a lot of people have GPUs. Same for CPUs. They're in every computer. The processing power fluctuates quite a lot, but you have removed that large barrier to entry, because it's as low as it can possibly be at that point. The same thing happens for staking. So if you are wanting to do staking, you must have money, because you've got to go out and buy a lot of DigiByte if it were to be implemented. That's specifically what I'm saying. But so again, there is a large barrier to entry there, and we're ruling out a lot of the market. So because we are ruling out a lot of the market, that centralizes things. Because we're centralizing things, again, it's not going to increase the pie chart of distribution like we were talking about. So
The nice thing with POS is at least it's liquid. Your
this is true.
asset. You buy an ASIC, and you're not going to get your money back for it in selling.
Yeah.
But-
So,
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to actually talk a little bit about, because you've talked specifically a number of times, Matthew, about staking, and I know obviously that Noah's been involved in staking and masternode operation.
Well, I was really against POS at first too, but there have been some new algorithms that people have put forward which are ingenious in their design and pretty much impossible to break. So I like that security aspect of it, that nobody really has control. Like even if some of these, even if you had 90% of the coins, you couldn't really cheat. Like that's a good barrier there, especially. The advantage to POW I like is that it does kind of distribute more, whereas the POS is whoever has coins gets more coins.
Yeah.
I think we're going to inevitably have to switch over, and I think even Bitcoin, everyone's eventually going to, because there is a fundamental limit in how far POW can go, because as the cost, your hydro costs and that go up, at some point, it's not going to be profitable, which means people are going to have to shut down. And at that point, if more than 75% of the people shut down, you're no longer safe against 51% attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really need to always have a ramping up effect with POW.
Yeah.
So eventually, it just cannot be achieved. And like even worst case, and some people say, "Oh, you can do POW forever." Well, no, because at some point, we're going to build a Dyson sphere around the sun, use the entire output of the sun to mine. We cannot physically go above this point.
Yeah. There are physical limitations.
I want one of those.
But this is specifically why I think it was Coinbase at the end of, it might have been at the end of last year, where they actually increased the number of confirmations that you need if you are making a Litecoin transaction, and they increased it from 2 to 6 because specifically the hash rate of Litecoin had dropped so much. Coming back to what you were specifically talking about, you've got to keep it going up and up and up and up, but because of their big halving event, it plummeted because people were shutting it off.
And all that old hardware sitting around could potentially attack it.
What is this POS algorithm that you're talking about, and how does it work?
Well, there's a bunch of them. Somebody was recently putting it in one of our channels, and I was reading through it, and it was really ingenious. I'd have to go look again, because I have too much things on my plate to actually
Was it Algo,
keep track
Matthew?
of individual.
No more extra homework for Matthew.
Was it the Italian in Algorand? The Italian that
Silvio.
It might be. I don't know. I can't remember.
So there is a
But it
number of
was-
different staking algorithms and a number of different ways it could be incorporated. But I think like the key suggestion from Matthew that we've had for a little while is that one of the 5 at least would be replaced with staking, which could it would give us effectively like we would have ASIC, we would have an FPGA, we would have
Hey,
GPU,
Jared.
CPU, and staking. Hey Jared,
Hey.
welcome.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late.
Welcome.
No worries,
That's-
we're talking about staking.
Oh, okay.
Well, we understand why you're late. You're in the field.
All right.
Wait,
Yeah,
is that
no.
a real field or is that?
I don't think
No,
so.
it's a background I had from before, but no, I was outside. I was fixing some sprinklers, and I left my phone inside. So it's a little hot outside.
Yeah, so one of the
anyway.
things, sorry, we were just, specifically Matthew's been talking about staking and the idea of having one of the algorithms, so we've been talking about the behind proof of work that your hash rate needs to keep going up and up and up and up. And there are a variety of different options, and I think even one of the things that we've talked about in the past is the idea that every 5th block must be a staked block or something along those lines. Like, there's a whole lot of different ways that we could skin this cat.
It's an interesting idea.
Well, the reason I suggested we fix it on the POS just because the POS timing is not going to be matching with the proof of work.
It's something as well that we've actually, Jared and I have had considerable chats at length over the years about the idea behind staking and having some rewards going through to a, because this is actually one of the questions that's in the somebody has asked here, is have you thought about in the past staking, rewards going to a central entity, and perhaps even the idea of having mining software that allows you to donate a specific amount to either the DigiByte awareness team or, you know, that kind of thing as well, to development and things. So yeah, like we've actually, Jared and I have probably spent somewhere in the vicinity of like 50 plus hours going over different possibilities over the years for things that we can do in terms of funding things, I suppose. Is that probably the best way of phrasing that?
Well, yeah, the idea is, since we have 5 mining algos, that at some point in the future, you know, it's possible that we could swap one out and then use that 20% to basically is kind of like a hybrid proof of work, proof of staking system. So it's an interesting idea. It's definitely, you know, it goes back to that idea of how do you incentivize more nodes on the network?
Yeah.
If you can keep people to, you know, keep their core node wallet running while staking, it's an interesting idea. But nonetheless, it's never been done before in this particular way. And it definitely, you know, like anything, takes a lot of time and energy. And, you know, it's a process.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting idea to discuss and to throw around.
So I got a
Something for version 9.
Yeah.
or version 10. Why not push it off further? But
Well,
governance. So we would have to literally look at which proof of stake or what kind of code base is available to even replace one, if not 3 algos, or what? What are we looking at? I mean, is it only 1, or is the option 2? Or I know because people want to get advised.
realistically, we're going to eventually have to switch to POS. If you look at the curve, I'm guessing by 2025, where POW is not going to be maintainable anymore. Who knows? The value of the coin could go way up, and that prediction could be way off. But a slow progression over and doing one algorithm at a time is probably the most logical way to do it, because then you can we can switch one algorithm over to POS. We can shrink how much the POS is making versus the other, which allows more money to go to the POW algorithms to help keep that alive longer too.
Okay, what about multiple proof of stake algorithms? I mean, if we're going to go
Step by step.
yeah, I mean, just
At
like,
least let us get version 8 out the door,
Just-
man. Come on.
Like, what I'm saying is, just like our 5 proof of work algorithms, I mean, you
Yeah,
want
switch one over to POS, then switch the next, and then the next, and yeah, they can each
to
be a different algorithm.
governance, though, like
I'm just going to interject and say I fundamentally disagree that we have to change everything to proof of stake, because I do not believe that would be anywhere near as secure, especially long term. But I do see the potential with the hybrid model. But I mean, there's a reason Ethereum's been talking about going completely POS since 2015, and here we are in 2021, and they just announced they're going to delay it even more. So,
well, I'm not saying the 2025 deadlines are for sure or anything, but there is a mathematical limit to POW. It cannot go on forever. It has to eventually switch.
It needs to be profitable.
It has to remain profitable, or hardware gets shut off. If enough hardware gets shut off, it becomes a security risk.
Which is one of the interesting, like we were talking about with Litecoin. But I know that Bitcoin SV have talked about specifically as they start to increase their block sizes, it becomes kind of interesting. They're already talking about, like, they've been doing 500-600 megabyte blocks every 10 minutes, and there is theory behind that. But a lot of that depends on the value of the BSV asset itself, and whether it's subsequently
a centralization problem.
Sorry,
they have a decent
that becomes a centralization problem, because who can store that much data on the thing? Like that's the same problem Matic has. Like, they are doing so many ridiculous number of transactions that it's almost impossible to run a node.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things as things scale into the future is to make sure that, you know, your average person can still run a full node on their computer. You know, in fact, I actually just barely shut down my Bitcoin node for the first time in like 8 years. I got a message that my MacBook hard drive was completely full, and about 90% of it was just Bitcoin Core, right? So, you know, we're a long ways from that with DigiByte, but yeah, I mean, that's the problem. You know, if you get, for instance, blocks every, you know, millisecond, like there's some of these data architectures have tried to do, you know, you basically end up in a situation where you have to run it from a really, you know, basically a supercomputer. And that itself is a natural limitation on the decentralization of the network.
You should see the hardware requirements.
Have you tried running a BSC node? I tried running it, and I could not think it, no matter how much. And that's running on Amazon. Like,
really?
Yeah. No, I was using. I wasn't using a hard metal system, but I think you'd need a metal system actually to actually get that stupid thing to sync. It's just so fast that couldn't process the blocks and get them in storage fast enough.
Well, so what are we right now? I think DigiByte Core, last time I looked yesterday, it was like 30, almost 39 gigs. Is what
yeah, it's not bad.
With indexing, yeah, give or take.
Yeah, with indexing. I mean, if you think about it, I think the last time I just did a Call of Duty update, it was like 100 gigs, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, right.
DigiByte's nowhere near that problem, but
yeah.
We're not talking about doing 100 gig blocks or anything stupid either.
I mean,
oh my God.
Gig.
Right.
He just said 100 gig box. Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
Bye-bye solid state hard drives worldwide.
What priority level is proof of stake algorithms for DigiByte?
It's not going to happen until 9.
What's more important?
Well,
Yeah.
I think the biggest, from my perspective right now, I think it's cool to take a multifaceted approach to explore new ideas, to explore new things. I think the biggest limitation that we have right now is just a robust support environment for new developers and entities to come on board and to start integrating and building on top of DigiBytes, either, you know, by assimilating or including something with DigiAssets or DigiID, or just leveraging, you know, the blockchain itself to build infrastructure on top of. And, you know, one of the things, since we have been a really decentralized community-driven project, you know, and there's never been a giant pool of funds to hire a whole team of developers and writers and marketing people, is one of our weak points has been just that robust environment that makes it super easy to just, you know, get started as a developer, like what you see on top of Ethereum, right? I mean, that's, you know, that the downside is you have a lot of heavy centralization with some of these build stacks and build environments or Infuras. But that is what has attracted a lot of new people that have come in. You know, and over time, you know, I think that there's several people working on stuff to help fix that and mitigate that. But I think as you see a more robust environment to make things easier to create, you know, the rest of things kind of fall into place. But, you know, in reality, we can always improve things. We can always make things better. But, you know, here we are almost 8 years in, and we've got a pretty robust platform as is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and, you know, the one thing after, you know, since the beginning, I think we did 2 hard forks in 2014.
Yep.
One of them we had to do like 4 or 5 weeks right after we launched. We had to fix some stuff, then we had to fix another one. It was a lot easier to do that back then, or even in 2019. You know, nowadays, you know, and you see the same thing and the same progression with like Bitcoin. You know, they made several big changes early on. You know, they had to fix a couple things. Like there was a couple really nasty bugs. Like what was the one bug that it printed like a couple billion Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back early on. You know, so stuff like
Somebody
that.
overflowed the register and printed a ridiculous amount.
Yeah. It was like billions of Bitcoin. A lot of people don't know that, but they had to actually kind of roll it back and fix it.
It was like 8 or 12 hours or something, I think, that rolled back.
Yeah, and they did it very rapidly. You know, so, and that's what, you know, the hard part is in you know, this day and age. I mean, Josiah can tell you the last time, I mean, how many months were people contacted? It was like 3 or 4 months that we were constantly, all of us were contacting people. And there were people that were running nodes we didn't even know about it. I mean, it was kind of amazing to find out how much we didn't know about who was actually on the network, who was in what service, you know, who was running what where. And I would say that's even more so now.
Yeah. So I was looking last week specifically around that because we'd been talking about the known versus the unknown. So when it came to the AutoCrypt upgrade, we knew who roughly 60 to 65% of the network was. Like, it varied at any given point in time, but give or take, we knew who they were, like the mining pools, we'd contacted them and that sort of thing. When I looked last week, the known quantities were down just under 30%, which means that there is a lot of people both taking up that permissionless ethos, which is cool, but by the same token, it means that if we happen to go ahead and there is a big upgrade that needs to take place, it becomes really, really difficult to actually get in touch with all of those people in any way, shape, or form. You can't send someone a message on their Discord if you don't know who they are. So...
You're just talking about the upgrade on the core wallet, right?
Yeah.
Well, see, and that's the thing. It's like even to identify who the address holders are is pretty well impossible, especially after like the Dandelion upgrade, because you can't even
do IP addresses.
You can't even locate IP addresses, right? So it really is a really decentralized network. Which, you know, to kind of, I guess the theme of this was, you know, future upgrades, potential additions, where DigiByte can go, you know, development wise. You know, I guess my 2 digis are, you know, it's possible to do multiple things at once, you know, working on these new upgrades. But the biggest thing is just to make sure, you know, everything is data driven and there's analytics behind why things are necessary. And that everything's thoroughly tested, because, you know, we're to a point now where the project has matured enough where you know, any changes really have to be heavily scrutinized, tested, and then put through the ringer, you know, before they're put out in the wild. Because
I like that improvement.
Yeah,
that's exactly what these contribution guidelines are for. You know, so we follow these guidelines so that we mitigate the risk, and we do thorough testing. We have, you know, a whole set of different eyes on it. And it goes through, you know, a set of rigorous methodologies so that make sure that the code is implemented correctly. You know, so that's basically why that happened in the last few months, because, you know, look at us. We were $1 billion project and then a $2 billion project, right? and we have to start thinking about how to protect the chain long term, and put in these checks and balances so that we can do all these things. But like Jared said, everything has to kind of be very well documented and tested, and kind of go through a lot of different checks and balances before things are just kind of pushed through. That's important.
Right.
Now.
And I'm here to be the first person to step up. I have inadvertently, over the years, ended up putting bugs in that I was not aware of until after the fact. And it was one of the most stressful things, basically staying up for 2 or 3 days to roll out another hard fork to fix it. And that's something that if it happened in this day and age now with the size of it, it would be, absolutely terrifying. So I never want to go through that again. So it's like any addition, or thing I make, I want to make sure other people are like they're, double checking it.
We didn't get much sleep for a little while there. I remember that.
Yeah, we're accidentally putting bugs in it on accident.
But then could you roll back the DigiByte chain? If there were a bug in DigiByte, could you roll it back?
I at this point don't think you could.
No. It's not gonna happen.
How did Bitcoin roll back then? The inflation.
There was a handful.
They had enough people agreeing to do it.
Yeah. It would have tanked the whole thing.
You need a lot of miners. Well, you need more than 50% of the miners to agree to do it, to do a rollback like that.
Yeah.
And there's probably only maybe a few hundred people involved at that point, because I think it was like 2010 or 11, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2011, I think. It was super early, and besides it's even back then, as with now, the Bitcoin miners are still incredibly known compared to the problem that DigiByte has, which sounds really, really shitty to say it like that. DigiByte has a problem with our mining because everybody's so on board with that ethos of both pseudo-anonymity and permissionless, right? Like, we don't know who those miners are. We can't easily get in touch with them. There's no phone directory. Whereas if you look at Bitcoin, because there's only about 8 of the main miners and a couple of smaller ones, you contact 4 exchanges and you're done. Not exchanges, 4 mining pools, and you've got 60-something% of them. We don't have that. We don't know who they are. There's
mining privacy. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, and here's the other big element of this is, right now, DigiByte is globally dominant in 3 of the 5 algos, right? So
that's important.
The 2 that aren't, are SHA-256, which is obviously Bitcoin,
yep,
and then Script, which is Litecoin. My kind of thought on it is as long as we're globally dominant in those algos, I think long term that's a healthy thing. And on the flip side, to kind of play devil's advocate, we've made multiple algo changes over the years, but I don't necessarily think that's something we want to be doing every 6 months or every year, right? Because if you look at the time and an investment that these miners, organizations, or groups have made, to specifically mine DigiByte, which I do know there are groups out there that have done it, although I don't really know the details. A lot of these groups have they haven't really publicly advertised it, but I know that there's been some pretty serious investments out there just specifically for DigiByte mining. And so on the flip side, it's like, okay, you don't want to disincentivize these people, because if miners know you're just going to start changing stuff up every 6 months or every year, it's a turnoff. And these people are helping secure the network. But obviously on the flip side, you don't want it to get heavily centralized, where you have a monopoly with, a certain company or group that's created some sort of secret ASIC, right? And ideally, you want a system where everybody can download the node and then also mine and help secure the network, because that becomes the ultimate form of decentralization. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah. And that's one of the things with the recent, with AutoCrypt specifically. So there is a mining pool, and they've asked not to specifically be named, but they're also an exchange, and they jumped on board a couple months back, and they were, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, they are currently around about 20%. Now, they've gone out and specifically, like you mentioned, invested a truckload of money. And this, again, comes back to the whole, you need money if you're going to be doing FPGA and ASICs, because, you've got to buy the hardware. It's not cheap. The benefit, though, and this is one of the reasons why Matthew and myself are still relatively interested in the idea of an AutoCrypt like 1.1, for example. is that because you have flexible mining hardware, be it with an FPGA or potentially in the future with a GPU and CPU, is that the algorithm itself matters less. And I'm more aiming this specifically at the people who are watching. And so if we do change AutoCrypt and we make it AutoCrypt 1.1, for example, all of those people with that FPGA hardware, like this large investor who they've literally invested enough money to get about 20% of the AutoCrypt blocks, they're still going to be okay, and they will still be able to contribute and secure the network, which is, like Jared said, very important. Like, they are what keeps DigiByte secure, and so you don't want to piss them off, really.
Yeah, we don't. There's a bit of a keeping to the ethos of what the plan was. Like, we want an ASIC miner, we want an FPGA miner, we want a GPU, we want a CPU. Well, at present, all of our algorithms are ASIC, except AutoCrypt, where there's question whether or not there's an ASIC or an FPGA or not. And it'd be nice to know for sure.
Yeah, and that's what the idea behind this AutoCrypt 1.1 is that certainty around the fact that if you change the hashing algorithm, then yeah, sure, like, it's not going to affect FPGA miners because they're reprogrammable, so cool, sweet, they don't mind. But if there is an ASIC out there, then yeah, it goes bye-bye, and you say, well, the ASIC algorithm is this algorithm, and so, that's kind of on the author of that. So, we'll see.
Quick question. Is this being live streamed right now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Was there a link tweeted out?
Yeah, I can flick you it. It was on, where are we?
I didn't.
It's on the main channel of Telegram, I saw.
I'll go send it to you.
So the cool thing about the decentralized aspect of mining, being able to secure the network with mining nodes, virtual machines, and all that. And I several times started with script, and my freaking computer kept, updating, crashing my virtual node, and I was just so upset, man. I was just done with it. I'm just done with it. It's still on my, CPU, and it's on my RAM. But the problem is like, you can join multiple mining, like on Discord. Oh yeah, we merge mine DigiByte. We mine DigiByte. We solo mine, and you don't even know that there's a core team, a Jared Tate. You don't even know none of this. You're just, starting to mine DigiByte out of nowhere, and that's why I understand you guys' frustration. We need like a DigiByte website. Obviously, we do have several. We have 1, 2, 3.
Oh, sure.
And we need an actual website that actually has, like, this is the numero uno website. You know what I mean? Where, like, you can get all your updates, all your alerts, all your warnings, whatever. Like, this is the website, that information that ties all these websites together, like, the DigiByte Awareness Team Foundation, whatever, what have you, the DigiByte.org, and whatever other DigiByte sites we have. We need that communication with the website.
The problem then is you've given too much power to the individual behind that website, which is where it's kind of nice having the GitHub itself, because that's why in all of the, like, I think it's maybe the last dozen or two DigiByte update videos, I specifically said go to the GitHub, because that's where the code commits are happening. So it doesn't matter who's running or maintaining a website or whatever. This is where the code is being worked on. So
to continue with that, to kind of play devil's advocate here, and to just tell some stories from the past. So when DigiByte was first launched, it actually included something called the alert keys. And it was basically a set of keys that we could broadcast, and by we, basically I had the keys. I could broadcast a message to every full node and client out there. So I could basically say, hey, there's an emergency update that's needed. Click here, download this update, right? Well, that was originally developed in the first version of Bitcoin Core, basically in case Satoshi needed to roll out the emergency update. And it actually was used when they had that inflation bug, if I do recall correctly. But it became very clear very soon that is a super dangerous thing to have. Because let's say somebody, broke into my house, holds me at gunpoint and says, hey, put out this message with a malware version of the DigiByte blockchain, right? Or somehow, conks me over the head after I've already accessed it and takes it, right? Or just straight up hacks it and backdoors it. That's dangerous, right? So when it comes to having some sort of central like information repository or direction, to tell you straight up, we've had, what are we on, our 7th version of a website for DigiByte, I think now. And out of the 7, 2 of them have been hacked to basically where they were completely taken over. And the first few websites we had were actually running on Drupal, which is very widespread, but has a ton of known vulnerabilities. And some of those got exploited. One of the funny ones is we got Rickrolled. Somebody actually changed every link on the website to the Rickroll video. But that's the danger of having that sort of a setup is if it's in the wrong hands or if it's abused, it just kind of, defeats the purpose of decentralization. But at the same time, it does help to coordinate, to organize, but what we've tried to do, and especially, I myself have tried to do, is to take a step back, to, turn things over step by step, and to make it a system where if I get hit by a bus or something else, nothing really changes. Life goes on. Nobody even knows it. Right. And we're getting there. And that's the cool part. So, that's my 2 digis on the,
if you're going to build a system that alerts people, probably the ideal would be just have the core wallet watch the version number of the units that are attached to it and just alert you, hey, I see a newer version.
Which it actually does that. It will tell that. It'll say unknown block versions on the network. It will do that.
No, unless if you told somebody on a website, hey, pay attention for these things, this will keep you up to date. But I know exactly what you're saying. I know what you're talking.
And that
you've all seen that message.
Yeah, I was going to say that message has appeared a couple times in our history here, but it'll just say unknown block version.
Yeah, that's currently on our testnet because of all of the testing of like algo changes and stuff as well. So if you fire up the node in testnet mode, it will actually pop up. But again, it kind of like it comes back to the whole who controls that, and so that's part of the benefit, I guess, for like mainnet is obviously the miners are going to have to control those versions effectively, but it's
that's only if someone's mining, right? Like you could have it's even a soft change. Just watch because the node connects to 100 different other nodes. Just say, hey, I happen to have seen version 7. Whatever, and maybe you're interested. Maybe go check the GitHub.
Yeah. Well, the problem is I've gone and I've run version 8.19. I've also run version 8.20 and 8.21, but none of those actually like exist anywhere at the moment on any repository to specifically download. So
fair enough.
It really is like it's a rock and a hard place. And actually, one of the really cool things specifically tying into what Jared mentioned about not having like a central website or a central set of keys is that actually. See you, Matthew. Thanks so much for coming, man. I really appreciate your time.
See you, man.
Thanks,
See you, Matthew.
Good work with DigiAssetX.
Yes.
Thanks.
Man.
One of the things that we've done specifically with this version, so 7.17.3, John was actually involved in this as well as Kegel and as Yoshi in doing the getting and build process, like the verification and things. So again, we're trying to branch out more away from that centralization. So yes, on the one hand, it's nice to have like a central place that would say there is an update, but who determines there is an update, and who determines what goes into that update? And so this is very much again coming back to the whole discussion around the development process and things. Again, getting more eyes on it, getting more community contributions.
So I get a lot of community members like from a little bit of every other platform, like Telegram, Discord, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Like they got questions all over the place, and I have to replay back my memory. Like, okay, what can I say? What can I say? You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that's Telegram. You need to go here on Telegram, right? I don't want to mislead people, but we got DigiByte alerts there. And so, yeah, I mean, we do have those things, but not too many people understand what a core wallet is. Why do I need a core wallet? Don't we have an app wallet and all that? It's like, when you mention core wallet in a discussion or a space and man, they're confused. Wait, no, you mean the app wallet? No, we're talking about the core wallet. You mean mining? Yeah, but you can still have a core wallet without mining. It's like,
yeah.
What are we
no, there's a lot. It's a lot, and that's actually why I've been working on this project I've been working on. I can't tell you how many thousands of messages I've received just even the last year. And a lot of it's the same questions over and over again, basic stuff. And so I'm working on a resource where I can point people and be like, hey, you can start here. These are the basic things. And then here's how you break down the differences and then how you compare it to other blockchains. Because there's nothing out there right now like that. But yeah, I definitely understand the confusion. And that's, a huge part of the reason. And to clarify, just to back up, that whole alert key thing, we ripped that out in 2015 and 2016. So that no longer exists. Just to clarify that out there. Because I didn't want
that. When did Bitcoin take that out? That wasn't too long ago, was it? Did Bitcoin take that out?
Yeah, because that's basically when we did it. We're like, yeah, this really should be taken out.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been ripped out of Bitcoin too. It still exists in some other chains, as far as I know, though. I not off the top of my head, but I'd have to look into it. But one of the reasons and issues we had going back to 2017 is you had a lot of personalities come in and scammers that would just start spreading absolutely fake information that was completely not real at all. And that's one of the reasons why we originally started that Telegram alerts channel. And then we did kind of update some things, and then we made some new group chats to communicate, because back then everybody was still talking on Bitcoin.
Bitcoin talk forums.
Forums, and we were doing some stuff. I mean, for the first few years, a lot of our development stuff actually happened on IRC, which there's probably a lot of. I was going to say there's probably a lot of people probably watching it have no idea what that is.
We're showing our age now,
right?
Dating ourselves.
Old school.
It was the very first way to chat on the internet, going back to the 90s, basically.
Crypty, do you know what dial-up is?
It's when you use the internet through your phone. I've never actually done it, but I've heard about it.
Not your phone, but your phone line.
Okay, your phone line. Yeah.
And then even back in the day, you get this little CD from AOL, and you had to put it in your computer and then run it, and then you could.
I always threw that thing in the trash.
I've heard the horror stories.
Right? Yeah.
Remember those Hay 2300 baud modems?
But the sound is what I miss the more.
Those sounds.
Connecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best part is when someone else picks up like the phone, like somewhere else in your house, and you can hear,
"Oh
hello?
no,
hello."
Yeah.
Mom, get off the phone.
I'm like 45 minutes into a download right now. It's like 1 megabyte.
It took hours and days to download anything.
It got better.
When you would look at an image, it would load the top, and then the next top.
Yeah, the progressive JPEGs.
Yeah, the progressive JPEGs, and you sit there. Sometimes it take 15 minutes just to look at a picture on a website.
So cable was the next thing, but I believe since I live in this central or the Midwest, we were the testing ground of fiber optics when cable like Roadrunner was coming out. So we already had fiber optics in Kansas City before anybody, like in the world, when everybody was receiving cable. I just wanted to throw some of that tidbits out there.
Yeah,
so you had that speed.
In rural Idaho, I had high-speed DSL in 2000 out in the middle of nowhere. But that's because they put it from Seattle to Salt Lake, and but yeah, it's the same sort of thing. They tested it out in the West first. But yeah, interesting. So the other thing I wanted to add in about kind of where I see everything now, I think it's been absolutely amazing what everybody's kind of come together to kind of start streamlining the process specifically for development wise. And I know that there's a lot of, there's basically, without going into detail, there's multiple groups out there right now working on their own kind of unique projects, with their heads down, focusing on stuff that's going to really benefit DigiByte in the long run. And I think it's pretty cool to just see so many different ideas and things and groups of people actively engaged on a daily basis, helping make stuff happen. So, I want to thank all of you that are on this chat right now, and then everybody out there watching. I think it's pretty incredible. Like, DigiByte really is a grassroots community with people from all over the world, which is pretty amazing. So,
and big shout out to Matthew as well. Unfortunately, he's just disappeared, but we had a really good chat before about DigiAssetX and what's been going on there, and some of the problems and the pain points that it alleviates. So yeah, big shout out to him for all that hard work, and he's now spearheading that integration into other third-party wallets as well. So yeah, I'm taking my hat off to you, man. Well done there. But you're right, and so this is some of the things that we're specifically looking at, is additional improvements as well to DigiByte, like the core wallet and things too. It's not just going to be algorithm swaps. I've kind of mentioned in the past that there are extra...
Well, Taproot and Schnorr signatures, I think, are huge advancements. That
huge. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We're gonna have that.
I mean, yeah, I would like to see it. I'm 100% on board with the idea. That's there's that whole process and technology, the development behind it's been years in the making. So it's I was first talking to developers and listening to presentations on that, and I think in 2015. So it's one of probably the most reviewed, tested, and the cryptographic principles behind, like Schnorr signatures, I think go back to the 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
I think even before that, because the only reason they didn't specifically include it was because it was patented, and the patent expired, if memory serves me correctly.
The patent expired, yeah, you're right. Because I wanted to say it was the early 90s, when the math was, I guess, hashed out at different universities.
Yeah, and it's Peter Wool, I believe, who's been the primary driver behind this.
But you're right; it would have been originally included if the patent hadn't been there. Yeah, it was 1990.
Yeah,
which makes sense. Yeah, the patent was applied in 1990, so then it actually doesn't expire. Oh no, it just expired because what is it? 21 years. But yeah, no, it was basically the original drawing was submitted in 1989. So that goes to show you how long that's been around and tested for. So definitely worthwhile. So that's I think that's a huge improvement that we can benefit from.
Yeah. So that's
what about regulatory wise?
Go ahead.
What about regulatory wise, right? Because one of the things that's great about DigiByte is it does have some features like Dandelion, but it's not a privacy coin. Does Schnorr's affect that status? How does that affect us?
It has some privacy features, but it's more of an efficiency improvement than anything.
Because what it's 15%.
Yeah, so it's simplifying and it's reducing the amount of space that's needed. So it's actually more of a scalability enhancement than anything, because what it allows you to do is to basically fit more in the blocks with less data and less usage. So that's really its biggest improvement.
And part of that comes from the privacy aspect comes from the multi-signature transactions. And so because you're not having to go in and do a whole lot of things the way that you currently are and using all of that additional space, you just need the one signature. And in fact, what you can even do is you can even do a Schnorr block, which is where the whole entire block has just one single signature. And again, you compound that space saving. There's a whole lot of really, really nifty stuff that you can do with it. Yeah.
And you can build some advanced smart contract features and technologies on top of the blockchain too. And it helps it be done a lot more efficiently without, I guess, getting into too much detail.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah.
Are there any updates that are necessary for the DigiByte blockchain before we get millions of eyes on DigiByte? Like DigiByte in the mainstream news every day, something like that.
Yeah, I can think of a couple.
And because you guys were saying like as DigiByte scales and gets larger, it's harder to make these updates and it's more risky. Like, are there any necessary updates before we're huge? Like,
so I think it's important to clarify the distinction between the core protocol in the actual blockchain itself, and then some of the surrounding support infrastructure. I think that there's many updates that could be done in that surrounding support infrastructure that would help make it easier for all these new eyes and people to come on board. However, I would argue with the blockchain itself, it would survive and thrive as is right now. But there's definitely enhancements that could help make that, I guess, even more scalable. But I would say where we're sitting right now, compared to pretty much any other, especially UTXO blockchain, we're in the best position.
Nice.
But it's going back to our earlier discussion point here of, most people don't even know what a core wallet is, right? So, when you start talking about making some crazy algorithm enhancements and some other things, it kind of comes out as a bunch of gibberish to your average person, right? What they want to know is, can I get DigiByte in an easy to use wallet and move it and send it back and forth without any issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, after answering support requests for years, some new people, when I have to explain that they have to wait for their wallet to sync with the blockchain, that is usually where we do lose a lot of people. And they're like, well, we heard DigiByte so fast. And you're like, well, you still have to sync it with the network for it to work, right?
Yeah.
And that I think is a huge roadblock for a lot of people. But the infrastructure that we have in place right now is 100 times better than it was in 2018 and 2017. The maturity of all these third-party wallets that have provided, wallets like Coinomi and Exodus, etc., have provided a great place to send a beginner. Be like, hey, just download this; it makes it easy.
Yeah, because they're already synced. So,
Well, there's a back-end third middleman that acts as that. But that's also dangerous in its own right? Now, obviously, over time, certain groups or companies tend to be more trustworthy and have proven themselves. But at the end of the day, that's why what's so beautiful about the great job that people and everybody and Noah and Yoshi and all you guys and Josiah, the work on the core SPV wallet, I think has been truly amazing, because the fact that wallet can sync the way it does and still be its own independent light node, to me, those are the kind of future wallets that can really be beneficial to support a mass wave of adoption. Because I think those kind of wallets and technologies are the most critical, because that first wallet experience that people have with the blockchain really defines how they view that chain and what they stick with.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. Yeah, thanks for that answer. That was great.
Yeah,
And
hopefully that kind
It's
of breaks it
so
down a
great
little
to
bit.
hear that DigiByte's in a much better place as far as UTXOs go for scaling.
We look at the likes of Doge, and I don't think they've even got SigWit.
They haven't done any real major improvement since 2014, right?
Yeah, so that was when they changed to be auxiliary proof of work, and unfortunately they did have a developer who was working on some things and had done a few bug fixes, and that developer passed away a couple months ago now. They were basically doing enough to keep things alive effectively, but little more than that. The actual blockchain itself is still running on version, I think it's based on 0.13, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's, that just goes to show you, and it can happen quick. And when that happens, when all of a sudden you get a ton of price action, there are some problems that disappear, and then there are new problems that appear. So, that's one of the issues, is you can be working to solve problems for one situation, and then literally in a week or so, those problems are gone and you got other problems. So it's and that's why we've tried to get ahead of it, going back to 2014 and to design a system that's already there and scalable. I mean, I don't know an exact number. I'm trying to work on some more advanced analytics, because to be completely honest and transparent, there is so much we don't know about the DigiByte blockchain that I wish I knew. But that's just kind of the power of decentralization. So trying to gain more insights into, the performance, bottlenecks, where there's, I mean, it would be cool to see if there's a new service where boom, there's a bunch more new activity in this part of the world or in this location or this, there's just so many insights we don't know. And learning those insights can help drive and shape future additions, future changes, to help things grow and scale. But that as things get bigger and as they do scale, those changes become harder and harder to make. I would argue Bitcoin is easily to a point where outside of Taproot and Schnorr, and if you think about those enhancements, I think were originally proposed in 2014. And I think work started in 2015. It was ready to deploy as early, I believe, as 2018 or 2019.
Yeah, 2018.
And here we are. Yeah, so 2018. So if you think about this, that improvement for Bitcoin was in the works for 7 years, 6-7 years, right?
Why didn't they do it then?
Because you had the fork, right? When Bitcoin Cash was created, you had the big block versus small block debate. And there was just basically enough people who are like, look, we don't need to change anything about Bitcoin. It's fine.
Yeah, well, I remember those days.
Right? And it's still the case, right? Yeah. And there's something to that argument of saying, hey, it works. If what's the old saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Look at the traction Bitcoin's, gaining in the world. So, there is something to that argument. And I've actually had people tell me straight up, hey, if you guys have done 6 or 7 hard forks over the last 7 or 8 years, isn't that dangerous? Why do you keep changing stuff? Is it broken? And you have to be like, no, we're just trying to make it better so we can scale more. But there is a certain amount of, I guess, fear that goes along with that.
It's a balancing act.
Right. Let's say you're a big institution that, wants to put $100 billion worth of people's pensions and retirements and savings and invest in a blockchain. Are they going to want something that's stable and proven and consistent? Yeah, absolutely. Right. But, at the same time, you do need to make enhancements. You do need to, continue improving. But I really do believe we're in a good spot right now. Yes, it can always be better. I'm one of those people, I don't believe in absolute perfection, but I think we've gotten pretty darn close.
We should strive for that, though. I mean, I know we're not going to be perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think it's like I said before, helping build out that support infrastructure, easy to use, beginner friendly wallets. That's how we scale in front of 1 million people. Right. And I would argue, I think there's probably been already over 1 million people that have held DigiByte in a wallet at one point or another. I think if you look at the stats, I haven't pulled them yet, but I think we're pushing 400,000 downloads of core wallets since 2017. Now, it doesn't mean there's 400,000 nodes out there, but just people. And a lot of that are people that have downloaded 2 or 3 versions. Right. But just still, it's a pretty impressive feat. When you're considering those are full nodes, and I would argue that full nodes probably only constitute maybe 5 to 10% of the wallets on the network now. Because the overwhelming majority of people are not running a core node. They're either storing their money on an exchange or they have it in a wallet like Coinomi or Exodus, etc.
I had some stats, and damn it, I wish Matthew was here because he gave me those statistics in terms of like unique addresses and things. And there's like tens of millions of them. And it's really interesting because he had the breakdown. He got this specifically when he was working on DigiAssets and the breakdown between the traditional legacy addresses versus SigWit, BIC32 addresses and things. And there's a lot of them. I wonder if I can find that really quickly because it's really interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Just like millions.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if there have been several million. There's definitely been millions of wallets created. It's really hard to gauge like how many users there are currently. I know people that entered in 2014, left, came back, and then, people come and go, right? I mean,
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Been almost
All
8
the
years
haters that I know DigiByte has downloaded the wallet. I mean, I got a lot of haters from the past that don't even know me. I'm like, dude, quit, just chill out. Maybe you haven't looked. Why don't you look at DigiByte again? You know, like.
Well, the hate is nowhere near as bad as it was in 2017. It peaked.
I was here in 2017.
Yeah, that was the worst. It's a lot better. It's like a whole new world. It's way better on a daily basis now. 2017 was pretty rough.
It was a wee while ago. We've improved a bit since then.
You had so many new people that came in, and it was their first experience with crypto, and they didn't know how the system worked, and it was cool on one side, but it was very stressful. It was a very stressful period.
So here's Matthew still watching. He's just flicked me the stats. So we've got, in terms of wallets that we know have more than just one address, there's about 3.6 million, along with wallets that seem to be just one address by themselves. It looks like there's a further ballpark 11 million, give or take. We've got roughly enoughly, like 15 million, round figures.
Wow. And with our 332,000 nodes downloaded, if that were around 5% of all the wallets, then that would be like around 6.5 million wallets.
Well, we've got, I think last crawl I found there was 11,500 active and online within the last 24 hours. Noah can potentially elaborate a little more there. He wrote the crawler. Sorry, I'm just... That timing, Joe. Good job.
Nodes, full nodes. So the crawler, conceptually, technologically, I think is moderately accurate. We know how node lists are stored in a particular node, just a list of IP addresses. And in theory, if you just let it operate, traversing the network, one node to another, for enough time, you will get a moderately accurate count of the amount of nodes that have externally accessible IP addresses. Just makes sense.
And there's a direct correlation with price movements and the amount of nodes that come online.
Oh yeah,
sure.
I can't tell you because so actually maybe I should quickly. I'll bring that up. This is just to clarify for some of the people watching, and the people in the Zoom chat won't be able to see this, but on screen now. So this is digistats.digibyteservers.io, and what you see there is the current node connections. So this is one node. Yeah, there we go. I can hang on. I'll transition back. Yeah, you've got it on your mobile. So this is one of the nodes that I myself operate. And so on this particular node, I have a connection at the moment to 80 other people. But of those 80 people, that's not the whole network. That's just one node that I operate has 80 connections. And exactly like Jared said, that goes up and down a lot. And you'll see that go up and down, especially as price movement happens. All of a sudden, we'll see that shoot up, and it'll almost instantly be at 300 just to my one node, let alone everyone else's nodes on the network and things like that. So yeah, it is funny seeing that price versus node ratio.
It's and then all the support requests, where people asking questions, and it just
hey, how do I get this off of the wallet that I last used, that Android wallet which was deprecated back in 2017, I think.
Or they're still on the version from 2014, and you're like, I appreciate the long-term holding, but you're about 6 versions behind.
They're firing it up, and there's 100,000 blocks or something, and it's you might have to update.
Yeah.
But speaking of updating, though, and you mentioned before, kind of coming back to what Crypty was asking about, some of the improvements and things, specifically, there's a lot of optional stuff that we could do, which would make things faster in terms of firing up the core wallet. One of the pain points at the moment is if you've got a core wallet, starting it up, that process in and of itself on a computer can take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes depending on your hardware. So we've got optimizations there which are happening that we've been looking at doing. And again, all of these are going to come through as pull requests. So as always, join the DigiByte GitHub and have your say. We've also got things around the synchronization speed to further improve that. As we scale over time and as we get bigger, we want that to be faster. We've got things which are going to slightly adjust and correct the supply curve. Again, this is something that I've been working on with Matthew here, is tweaks there so that it will be better going into the future, heading towards 2035. We've got, like Jared's mentioned, Schnorr signatures and Taproot are looking to be on the cards as well. So again, join the GitHub and have your say and be part of the upgrade process, because that's ultimately what this is about. Is there's no sense in just one person going, yeah, this is a really good idea, and then no one else actually cares about it, for example, or it turns out there's some detrimental aspect that they haven't thought of that other people are able to help out with and bring to light. So the more eyes and the more people that we have looking at that, the better, for sure.
Yeah, and that's our goal, is to make sure everything is out there, and that's why we just set up a Gitter channel, so that way these discussions, which, you know, in years past it's like you were saying, have kind of happened everywhere, right? You know, sometimes they're one-on-one, sometimes they're on a forum post, sometimes they're on GitHub. And, I mean, it was just kind of all over the place. Sometimes they're for a while on IRC, but to have one place to just kind of let anybody view, watch, and participate is ideal, because the one cool thing about, you know, DigiByte in particular is everybody on this live chat just kind of showed up out of nowhere and started helping out. And that's how the development's been since day one. And you know, there were people there's still people I don't know who they are, that have helped out and contributed brilliant stuff. And then there's people I didn't know who they were for 3 or 4 years until, you know, we finally talked enough and I got to meet them. So that's the cool thing. And I know that there's more people out there that would like to help. Some people don't want to be known. Some people do want to be known. But to have that door open is huge. And that's what we want to put it out there to everybody, right? So if people want to get involved, just jump on board and start making, you know, some submissions and additions. You know, it's not like you have to come ask any of our permission. You know, obviously what's kind of happened is if the majority of us are all like, hey, yeah, that really makes sense, that's good, you know, it gets adopted. So, you know, and a lot of these little tweaks, like Josiah was just talking about, those performance enhancements, they're really overlooked, but they're super important. Because if we hadn't been making those improvements over the last 8 versions, if you took the original version 1.0 of DigiByte and you tried to run it with the blockchain at today's size, it would literally lock up your computer and crash. And if you did get it to sync, it would sync so inefficiently, you'd be there for weeks. And so that is kind of proof of how these little optimizations made often over time have you know, left us here to where we are almost 8 years later in 2021.
I remember the DigiSpeed upgrade was fantastic for that, because even on my moderate hardware back in the day, it would take so long to fire it up, and then the DigiSpeed upgrade comes and I'm like, whoa, it fires up so quickly now.
Yeah. We improved the DigiSpeed. Can we make that faster?
You mean like the block timing?
Yeah. 15-second block time. I don't think you can do that.
Well, the interesting thing a lot of people don't understand is because we have 5 independent mining algorithms, each algorithm is what, a minute, 30 seconds?
A minute 15.
Minute 15 seconds. So the original argument against 15-second blocks for a single algo blockchain were that at 15 seconds, there would be parts of the network across the world that would gain an advantage because of the latency of the internet. So what we did is we looked at this study that Microsoft did on Bitcoin in 2014. I
think it was 2012. I can bring that up. We've got that
before?
on the wiki.
I can't remember when it was. But basically, this study showed they did this really heavy-duty analysis of how long it took Bitcoin blocks to propagate throughout the world. And basically, 95% of the blocks had propagated by, I think it was like 12 or 13 seconds, somewhere in there. I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's where that original data is. So the advantage we have with multi-algo, the miners for, like, let's say SHA-256 or UdoCrypt, they're only competing against each other in a minute and 30 second or a minute and 15 second window. So in theory, and this hasn't really been tested and developed, but we could actually condense that, and we could potentially have, like, let's say, 5 times 5 is 25. We could have 5-second blocks in theory, I think. Never been tested. There'd be a lot of work to do that, but theoretically, I think that is possible only with a multi-algo approach, because then you would have each individual algo is about 25 seconds. And, Ethereum is pretty well proven that 15-second blocks work with a single algo, right? I mean, they've had that in place for, 5 years now. So theoretically, it could be done, which would give us, how much would that speed us up now? Three times, 3x. So we'd have 3x of scalability. Things would be
problem is it increase the block count that much faster.
And that's the trade-off, because each one of those blocks has a bunch of data, and so you end up, unless they're full, and we're a long way from being full right now. So, it's like
store signatures would fill it up even more, or be able to fill more.
Yeah, it gives more room. That increases the capacity, like what, maybe 15-20%. Once everybody starts using it. So yeah, it definitely increases it. But what I would argue, we've got a lot of room right now, like a lot of room.
If the global internet speeds up, does that enable faster blocks as well on blockchains, or does that really not have to do with it?
Part of the problem is not just the throughput, but also the latency. So there comes kind of a limiting factor where even if we were to keep reducing down the speed of the blocks, it takes on average to get from New Zealand to get to the East Coast in the States. Actually, yeah, the East Coast I think is around about 260 milliseconds. The West Coast is around about 180, give or take. And this is a limitation based on the Southern Cross fiber optic cable that goes from New Zealand to Australia to Sydney and then up to California. There are processing delays there just in the amount of time it takes for any data to get across the world. And then, don't forget about, obviously, we've got Europe and things to involve, Asia. Mm-hmm. But in and of that, you've also got to have your computer able to process the transactions from the previous block and validate that. And there are certain limits there as well. So, yeah.
I think, and this is getting a little woo-woo and futuristic thinking here, but I think 10 or 15 years from now, the notion that we know as the internet is going to be radically different. If you look at the applications of mesh networks, specifically like with the rollout of 5G, what Elon's doing with Starlink, putting 60,000 CubeSats up there, you're going to have an exponentially faster internet that is going to be running, we're still going to have cables, but you're going to have a lot of this that's just done, wirelessly node to node. And there's actually a huge amount of applications for blockchain technology in that kind of architecture. And
especially
that
for rural places too. Yeah.
Especially for rural places, right? And that gets into something I talked about in my book called name data networking, right? And the way I explain this to people is like right now, the people that are watching this Zoom call or this video, right?
He's back.
Hey, Matthew.
So the people that are watching this video right now, okay, either on their phone or on a computer, their local computer goes and pings their ISP server. That ISP forwards that request to a domain name server, which then forwards that request to a YouTube server, which then goes through their basically clustered system to get that request. So just to get to where this video is located, your device just went through about 10 hops. Then it has to go through that same amount of hops back to you. And then it has to do it repeatedly many times a second, right? So if you think about what it would be like, if you give me your DigiByte address right now, and I send you DigiBytes, it goes straight to that address, right? Well, it is possible to take a blockchain and create a networking infrastructure to completely replace everything that's out there, ISPs, DNSs, CDNs, all this stuff. And when you take all those hops and that wasted bandwidth, imagine right now if you could improve and reduce 95% of the traffic on the internet with a new architecture, how much faster everybody's internet would be. right? So,
well, Jared, I have to object with some of the things you said here. The timing of the blocks is every 15 minutes, all 5 algorithms restart every time. So having the multi-algorithms does not help at all with the timing. They don't get a minute 15, they only get 15 seconds each.
But each individual block averages a minute and 15.
Each individual block minutes 15 seconds. All 5 algorithms restart.
But if you average the interval, like if you take all the SHA-256, if you take all the SHA-256 blocks over the last 24 hours, they're going to average a minute and 15 seconds.
No, they've averaged 15 seconds. They just threw out 4.
But
every single time they threw out 4, but the ones that didn't work. They found the 5th one in 15 seconds. They did not find it in a minute 15.
But if
they
you
all
average
build off the previous. It doesn't matter though, because the propagation time is the last block.
Yeah, so which is the key part. It doesn't matter what the last block was, but it's still 15 seconds even if we don't have multi-algo. That specifically doesn't improve our ability to scale. We just permit different types of hardware to validate it.
Right, but if you average that out over the last 24 hours, you're going to find a minute and 15 seconds. Actually. Because there's thousands of blocks that are solved every 15 seconds, right?
But every 15 seconds, all 5 algorithms find some block that is.
But there's more than 5.
Best they could. They find thousands. But of all five algos, each one finds the best block. Only one gets accepted. There is no. It's not
thousands. It's not just 5. I see what you're saying.
I know. I'm just saying though, it's not a minute 15. It is every 15 seconds. There's just 4 that got thrown out.
Right, but if you go over the last 24 hours and you average
so
how
that's
much
a meaningless
time
number.
It's not a meaningless number.
It is meaningless because they actually did find blocks in that time. They just threw it out.
But there's thousands of blocks that were discovered and submitted, right? And so but the algorithm, the network itself is only accepting a SHA-256 block every 1 minute and 15 seconds on average.
On average,
that's mathematically, you can prove it. And I can prove it to you.
On average, yes. However, it doesn't mean anything because every single one of those miners reset every 15 seconds.
Correct.
They did not take a minute 15 to do it. They took 15 seconds. So the fact that on average the SHA does one every minute 15 is absolutely meaningless.
We talking about
I still disagree, but we can talk more about this. I think we're both kind of saying similar things. But it does matter, and it does affect things.
But what you could do is you could do like Ethereum proposed, shard it into 5 different shards, and then you could actually shrink the timing by having each algorithm have its own subchain. But by having one chain, the timing cannot be improved.
Yeah, so the 5 versus the 1 algorithm doesn't actually affect our overall timing in the slightest. It's still 15 seconds, regardless of if we have 1, 4, or 5. And in fact, even if we were to drop one of those algorithms off, or let's say, for example, China were to be dropped off of the face of the planet due to power outages and things like that, and SHA-256 mining were to stop, the rest of the network would still continue just the same with 4, averaging 15 seconds on DigiByte, completely transparently, no changes needed.
So the issue is if a mining pool, let's say SHA-256, right? If a mining pool, let's say hypothetically we had 10-second blocks. Well, the problem is a mining pool in a certain region could submit blocks, get the next block in the chain recognized by nodes, and then have the solution to the next block. And that's the issue with speeding up blocks too fast, is you basically give one geographic region an advantage over basically getting a mining monopoly, right? So
they still do have an advantage, but yes, the difficulty makes it harder for them to get that second block.
Correct, because especially if you're going consecutively, your difficulty doubles if you get 5 in a row, which is why we do get a decent number of orphan blocks, because the previous algorithm will be found twice in a row, thanks to, that's just the way that multi-shield works. And so if you're finding, for example, a SHA-256 block, and I think I actually put this in the community white paper that I wrote, if you find a SHA-256 block, the chances of that being the next one in a row are significantly less because the other difficulties have dropped. But
the other thing is the pool can have all
orphans is
5
because
algos.
it is found at a high enough difficulty consecutively.
The other thing is, one pool can have all 5 algos and still have that timing advantage if you're restricted. It's not.
Well, but you gotta understand, every mining pool is submitted complete blocks basically every second, right? So there's literally thousands of completed blocks that have assembled all the transactions in that time window are constantly being submitted, right? But the network's only accepting one every 15 seconds, and then on average, one from each algo every 1 minute, 15 seconds. So what I'm saying is theoretically, you could improve that.
The math does not work.
Well, I disagree with you on that, but we can.
I know you disagree, but the math is not there. Unless you sharded it into 5 separate sub chains and then have them mixing, you're not going to get a time benefit from them.
Yeah,
you could
I'm
do
with
that
you on that one. There's not actually any benefit from with the timing with the timing with being multi-algo is largely irrelevant. We're simply permitting different hashing algorithms to verify the work. That's all that we're doing with multi-algo.
Yeah, a distinct time interval, which is important for.
So we couldn't specifically go from 15 down to 2.5 seconds or 3 seconds, sorry, simply because we are multi-algo. That wouldn't specifically change anything.
I mean, there is a hard limit as to where exactly that lies. I mean, I don't know off the top of the head because I haven't spent countless time doing this. I will say that in the past, I did mess around and speed stuff up. I think the fastest I did was 10-second blocks. We set up a test network just to kind of experiment to see what it was.
You could do 2-second blocks, but
I mean, it's
propagation delay becomes a problem.
Right. And that's, I mean, it depends on, there's a lot of factors, right? So it's not there, but
if you really needed to speed it up, sharding it would be the way to go.
I'm not convinced on sharding at all either. I just don't like that.
In the internet that affects, DigiByte with the 5 algorithms for the speed and efficiency. Is there a latency?
I mean, if you were in Timbuktu, in some rural part of Africa at the tail end of the fiber optic network, you're going to be at a disadvantage to run a mining pool there right now for anything. So there are parts of the world that have really low latency, right? I mean, if you're in Antarctica and you're trying to connect from satellite internet, and you're not going to be running a mining pool down there.
Well, actually, on the contrary, there's benefits to SpaceX. I can get from here to the States in 40 milliseconds across satellite versus 180 using fiber optic network.
So I agree with you. My point with SpaceX is it hasn't been fully launched yet. So I'm just talking about existing satellite internet.
They only have the northern hemisphere so far. So
we've got it here in New Zealand, and we're in the southern hemisphere.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I think it's just a few isolated places at this point. There's a few tests, at least the last time I looked at it.
We've been running a VPN specifically for gaming because it will connect you. If you go through SpaceX.
Bye, Noah.
See you. Cheers, man.
See ya.
If you connect through SpaceX, you
get
to the East Coast faster.
Thank you, guys.
See you, John. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, the SpaceX option is a huge improvement for a lot of things.
Yeah, I think
they still have to launch another 20,000 satellites to be fully on board.
Well, and the issue, so the quick question, I haven't really talked to anybody who's actually used that, but you said if you were doing it for gaming, because the issues that I read that some people were having is that because it's in low Earth orbit and it moves so fast that it does have cutouts. Have you noticed that?
Only if
So in New Zealand, at least, that cutout, there was 2 of them for roughly about 1.5 to 2 minutes, and it happened, there were 3 different times of the day when that happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the satellites are, as they put more and more, it takes 90 minutes for the satellite to go the entire way around the world. So you want to have multiple satellites viewable at any given time. It's going to take some time before they get there, but that's the reason they want to launch 20,000 satellites is at that 400 meter mark or 400 kilometer mark that they're launching these to. That's the ideal to get full Earth coverage.
I saw a YouTube video with Starlink, multiple. They look like UFO lights. They look like satellites. But they more look like, you know, kind of like the satellite passing in the night. It looks like a star, but you can tell it's a satellite a little bit. But these things are in a string, and they look like UFO lights, but they're not UFOs. They're like going around in a circle. Are these like the test?
You can see them. You can see them at dusk and dawn, and when they first launched them, they're all in a group together because they launched 70 at a time.
In one line, though, right?
Yes, when they first launched, but they do have their own ion propulsion drives, so they actually move apart over time. But when they first launched them, you could see them all in a straight line.
Yeah.
They actually look like freaking UFOs. I saw them the other day.
Yeah, dawn and dusk, what you're seeing is the sun reflecting off them.
Yeah, they look like a UFO going across.
I feel like I think that's just polluting space, you know, like that's a lot of satellites.
They're a long way away from each other. Like,
is it satellites or is it balloons? Tell me the truth. When
they're satellites.
I hear satellite balloon technology.
No, they're 400 kilometers up. They are well past the 100 kilometers that most people call outer space.
So third tier atmosphere.
Well, like, atmosphere doesn't actually stop. Like, a lot of people think of there's like a hard line. Like, if you go to the moon, there's actually still some atmosphere there. It just gets thinner and thinner and thinner as you go farther away.
Right.
So they're high. They put them up 400 kilometers. They're actually high enough that they need to keep using the ion propulsion drives to keep themselves up. Otherwise, within about a year or so, they will actually fall back to the Earth and burn up. Which, one of the reasons they put them so low is not only for the latency, but also if they lose control of one, it's only a year or so before they'll burn up in the atmosphere, and so they're not staying up there forever, causing junk.
There were also balloons, but that was Google's Project Loon. That's something completely separate. So the balloons have actually been retired. Google stopped that earlier this year.
And I don't know. I saw more balloons. I saw more balloons.
Well, and the reason they do low Earth orbit is because the latency is quicker. Like, that's pretty much the only way you can get high speed, which is what we can all agree on, that the limiting to the speed of a chain is really the latency of the internet and its physical infrastructure. That's the hard cap.
Yeah, you get like geostationary, which is what all the old satellites were. That's 40,000 kilometers away from Earth. That's a long way for it to go.
Yeah. Which is what, 23,000 miles?
I don't know. Something like that. What are miles?
Right. So not to change the subject, but you know what I would like to see? I would like to see Crypty Girl ask a bunch of really intelligent questions for Jared on her channel. That's what I'd like to see.
Oh, I would love to. Jared, if you ever get a chance, I'd love to interview you.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd be more than happy to. That'd be great.
Yay! So, I'm so excited.
Cool.
Yeah. Yay! Okay, I gotta check off again. But it's been nice
Matthew.
chatting.
Appreciate you coming back, dude.
Thanks, Matthew. But one thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I gotta get running here in a minute too, but yeah, I can.
Go.
Yeah.
Is how can DigiByte help with our current centralized energy grid, like how we saw the Colonial Pipeline with the ransomware and everything, and it's all basically just centralized. Can DigiByte help in any ways decentralize that?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know all the intricate details of the grid situation, although from what I've heard, a lot of these legacy infrastructure systems in the U.S., it's not like they were really hacked. It's just they never utilized proper modern day security measures, right? I mean, when they're running unpatched Windows servers that are using admin and admin as password, it's not really hacking, right? I mean, there's a lot to it, but to answer your question, to kind of really get to it, one of the things that's fascinated me is this, this move towards solar panels. So I actually have been messing around with some solar generators and some solar panels. And there for a while, there was this push in the United States where people could basically install solar panels on the roof and they could tie back into the grid. And that's like one of the things Tesla wants to do with like their power wall, right? Is they want to basically crowdsource energy from rooftops. So one of the fascinating blockchain startups, what was it called? Was it called Solar City? Anyway, they were basically trying to crowdsource.
Did that guy, though?
Yeah, I think it died. I haven't heard about it recently, but the idea is fascinating that you could create a decentralized power grid that the physical devices could use something like DigiID to talk to each other, and then the micropayments for the transaction for the energy could happen with DigiByte, right?
Gotcha.
You know, that's a lot of work. That's a long way off. It's possible. But I think as we start seeing more home-based energy systems, you know, especially solar, you know, because it's getting to a very affordable price.
Shoot, they're giving them away, Jared, in my city. They're like, here, as long as you don't have any trees, we'll give you.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, there's a company that was a Kickstarter. It's called Blue Eddy, and they have a 2,000 watt what they call solar generator. You know, that they were selling for like what, $1,600 that gives you, and if you hook it up to like 800 watts of solar, you know, you can charge it in a couple hours. That basically does all the work that your standard 2200i Honda generator does. And with the lithium ion batteries, you know, that lasts for 10 years. And, you know, if you tried to run that generator for 10 years, I mean, I calculated you're going to spend $45,000 in gasoline, you know, just for that thing, whereas it's free from the sun. So I think in the future, you are going to see more of a merger between blockchain technology and actual physical hardware and a decentralized power grid. It's a fascinating idea. And then, you know, you can integrate different elements to it, whether it's hydro or geothermal. You know, it's like what's really cool, what they're doing down in Salvador with the volcano, right?
Totally. Yes.
You know, but there's nothing that I know that's actively being done on the space. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely applications that can be used to secure the infrastructure, because a lot of times, you know, the way these things go down, I feel like it's not fair to call it a hack when it's just
dilapidated technology.
Yeah, right. And people just not patching their stuff or you know, running really outdated stuff. But that's the real world, right?
I think the Colonial Pipeline was like or we haven't upgraded.
Well, that infrastructure was built in
like from 1960.
Yeah, most of the stuff in the power plants in the U.S. and stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff was built in the 50s and 60s. So
yeah, the 60s.
You know, but yeah, there's definitely applications. There's ways that it can be done. But it really boils down to who's actually willing to try and implement it. And that's where I kind of feel like, just like blockchain has been a bottom-up revolution, meaning, you know, random people from around the world download the software client and start running it. And that's how the network was built. That's how DigiByte was built, right? So if people start doing that with a you know, crowdsourced open source power grid system, you know, it's an interesting thought, but I still think we're a ways away from that. But
okay, so then it would have to be like rebuilt from the foundation up with blockchain in mind and like nodes and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, I mean, it varies around the world. You know, one of the fascinating things that I always found traveling around is every country has a different style of outlet. Yeah. And you can always tell who the influential country was in another country you were at, because it would have those countries, you know,
upgrades,
outlets. And I think there's like 15 different styles worldwide of power, right? So, you know, but then you run into a lot of legal issues because a lot of the existing legacy infrastructure is owned by certain corporations, and they're not just going to give that up, right? Which is kind of why they put the kibosh on paying people to tie into the grid, because all of a sudden there were way too many people that were putting solar panels on their houses, and they're like, wait a minute, if we keep doing this, we're going to be out of business in 20 years. So they cut the subsidies, right?
Yeah.
So
not as much profit for them.
Yeah. It's when everybody starts, you know, becoming autonomous and, you know, harvesting their own solar power.
Well, wouldn't they just have to just raise, you know, the taxes on the service, or raise the service cost to put it in the new house?
It's all handled differently in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. every different area's got a different setup for how they pay for it. Some places they're public utilities and like state-owned enterprises. Other places they're private. You know, some places it's a hybrid. And if you go back to the 60s with the deregulation or well, it all goes back into the wars between Westinghouse and Tesla or Edison and Westinghouse. It's fascinating. You got to watch the documentary on it. It's interesting. The what they call them, current wars, I think is.
I don't know.
Yeah, where you're talking about the old generator coil. And,
well, when electricity, the fight between AC and DC, right?
Tesla and Edison.
Well, Westinghouse.
I think Westinghouse was like the main. They were actually the big coil makers, like the big generators that still run over there in what do you call the waterfall? What's that big waterfall over there? The Grand. Why is it eluding me? The big freaking waterfall.
Niagara Falls.
Yeah. So you have a Westinghouse
New York,
engine
Canada.
over there.
Yeah, that's where it all started there in New York. But yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, so there is a lot to come for that, and
I still think
it is
we're very early.
off, but yeah, I'm definitely looking more into that because, you know, it's essential, and we're gonna massively improve in the next few years, I think.
Well, one of the things about the pipeline hack is it's in the other events that are unfolding is it shows just how dated the system is and the infrastructure is, and that helps drive the need in people looking elsewhere.
Definitely.
You know, so I think that will open the doors, you know, down the road. But yeah, I still think, you know, we're very early, so there's a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
So Josiah, what is there, if you had one thing to say to all the people after this whole conversation about the updates, what is like one of the main updates that is so important that you probably told us over and over again? It has something to do with GitHub, watch the updates, be a part of it. Is that the main thing?
Well, the important thing about this update is getting participation from people. And so it's not just about specifically any one aspect. There's certainly aspects that will greatly improve the speed of the way that the DigiByte blockchain gets launched. There's things that will improve the speed of the synchronization. There's things that will improve the overarching security or the distribution and of the asset and the decentralization of the network and things like that. There's things that are going to empower additional stuff with smart contracts, which is going to have roll-on effects for digi assets and things like that. So there's so many things that we've kind of all of these things coming together in it, and this is why it's really really important that we get people to come to the main DigiByte GitHub and actually have their say and say, look, this is actually really important. So one of the things, for example, is we've had some mentions in the chat here about Raspberry Pis and running on a Raspberry Pi. Now, up until the most recent version, you were capped with the amount of memory that you could have at 4 gigs on the 3B. I think they now go up to 8 gigs, but anyway, long story short, the DigiByte blockchain wants your computer to have at least 8 gigs of memory in order to be able to run and cope. Ideally, you want to be pushing it towards 16 gigs now. So one of the things that we've got is that Yoshi's actually brought about an implementation, and so we are replacing the hash map with B-tree, or is it the other way around? Sorry, I'm a little bit foggy this early in the morning still, and that will give us a huge memory improvement, especially as we scale into the future. Now, this is obviously going to come at the detriment. It's going to need a little bit more hard drive space. So there's a bunch of different things here that we are doing, and it's really important that we get people specifically to say, hey, look, this and what you're wanting to do with this particular improvement over here is going to be beneficial for me, but it might not be beneficial for this. Or how about we make this like an optional thing where it's great if you want to turn it on as an optional flag if you are a Raspberry Pi user, that kind of thing. So definitely go and have your say. Like, actually what I should do is quickly bring this up, and if we go to GitHub, and I'll put it on the main screen here. We'll quickly do a transition so that the people that are on the live stream can see it. So up the top right corner, what we can see here is I'm currently watching it, and you can click on this and you can change the way that you, so I want to be notified of all activity. One of the things that you can do is you can change it and only be notified about issues or pull requests. So specifically pull requests are going to be like the new features and things like that, the really interesting stuff. I can zoom in this actually. So click on that, click on watch, go to custom, notify about pull requests. This is going to be all of the new and up-and-coming stuff here. So I think we've only got, yeah, here we go. AutoCryptV 1.1 was opened back in January, specifically by the Black Miner crew, which is awesome. So thank you again to them for this proposal, which is cool. One of the other things, too, that I will specifically show you is we've got a lot of work underway. So this is another repository here for version 8. And so Barry's been doing some work that he's going to then submit as a pull request. He's just recently merged Dandelion, which has had to undergo significant changes because of the way that Bitcoin now does its transaction, and rebroadcasting of that really interfered with Dandelion. So he's, I mean, you can see here just yesterday he's been doing some work on that too. So these, again, this is all going to come in as a pull request. So provided on the main DigiByte core, you've got notifications set to watch under custom here, tick pull requests. You will be notified when that comes up, and so you can have your say about this is cool, don't like this, do like this, what about another way for it to be improved, or even just to say thank you to the developers, because let's be honest, it's often a very thankless task. So have your say and be part of it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want people to get involved, and that's the cool part is the more people that come in, the more insight, the more review, the more ideas, the more things to share. The better it gets, you know, it's better for everyone in the long run. It's cool. It's really cool to see what everybody's been doing.
So we do have, there is a lot, like I mentioned, so I mean, going through, actually, we should quickly come back to the, I don't even have that open here on my screen. But some of the proposals are everything from, like, do we need to incorporate an AutoCrypt version 1.1? Some people would say yes, some people would say no, and that's cool, and I think we need to have that kind of a robust discussion. We need to specifically be talking more on Gitter about all of these pull requests and things like that. And so jump on and get involved and have your say in that. Now, this is obviously, when it comes to Gitter, this is specifically just for discussion around development. This is not the kind of thing where we want people jumping on going, hey, when Moon, or asking for technical support. There are other places for that, and Telegram is actually really quite a good place for that instead. This is specifically just for the development and asking questions about that development or contributing to that development. So yeah, have your say, be part of it. That's what we really want to encourage more, just like we've really encouraged the mining, is that participation and broadening that participation. That's what's really important.
100%. Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, thank you all. I got to get running. I got some people waiting on me, but yeah, thank you everybody, and appreciate you doing this. And
thanks for jumping on.
Exciting time. Yeah, thank you
guys.
So much, Jared. Yep, you guys have a great, well, I guess day and evening. So.
Any time in the world. Bye.
Yeah. All right, see you guys. Thank you all. Bye.
Yeah, Josiah, thank you so much for all your work too. I really appreciate that, and calling the community to action and just sharing all this with us, because that's a job in itself, just taking the time to share it and let us know what's happening. So hey, congrats on 250 updates, and thank you so much. Like, truly, it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you both for being a part of it, and obviously especially to the two of you, because you also run your own channels and things like that as well. So thank you for, like, I don't want to be the only one doing this, and so the more that we have the likes of, especially the two of you, doing that kind of thing and talking to people about it and explaining it to them in your own words and phrases and things like that, and reaching a broader crowd, I think that's so important. I'm so stoked to see that. So big thank you to both of you. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to rebrand my words. I'm like cut and dry, sometimes medieval. You know what I mean?
I like your video scripts. I like them.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You haven't been doing your part. When's the last time?
No, I've been behind the scenes. I've come to a point where I feel like although making YouTube videos is fun, I don't think I'm meant to be a YouTuber because it takes so much time and effort and consistency that you just have to keep up with it every single week, making videos and updates. And while that's needed and important, I don't think I'm the person that should be filling that role specifically, because there are other things that I know I have the skills for and could be doing. And I think I just want to make a larger impact in the background. So I'm starting to work behind the scenes, but I don't discount making YouTube videos at all, because the marketing is needed and getting the message out there is like half of growing your service, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And you're really jealous of the fantastic setup that you've got there, and you're very well spoken, and you look great on camera and everything. So yeah, jealous of the setup for sure.
Well, it'll work for interviews, right?
I'm more of the battle, you know, hold the line kind of guy. You know, I mean, like sometimes I
hold the line,
voice my mind a little too freely, and maybe I should hold those things back. One time, I think YouTube actually had control of my channel, and everybody that was watching it. I mean, some of the viewers you have here, Josiah, was on there that night, and they were like flashing subliminal verses or messages in the dark, like they were zapping me. They were like, I talked way too much about something. Yeah, it wasn't about DigiByte either. I go, guys, we need to stick to the topic of DigiByte. Let's not get too carried away.
Wow, that's crazy. I haven't heard of that one before.
Oh, you've heard YouTubers getting, you know, taken down because they're radical.
Yeah, I've heard that, but like not subliminal messages while streaming.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of weird.
We'll need to start putting that in our future ones. Bye, DigiByte.
And just blame on YouTube. They're telling you they're telling you to buy it. Wasn't me.
It's not us.
DigiByte flashes on the screen. I don't know what that was, guys. Sorry.
And again, as well, like, thank you to everybody. I mentioned this in the chat just now, but thank you to everybody else who's joined in and has watched this. And we're people yelling into the void otherwise without you tuning in to watch this and participate. So again, a big shout out, big thank you to everybody who's here, who's had some fun, who's said something in the chat, who's asked some questions and things. So thank you so much to everybody. It's really great to see.
Thanks, everybody.
I feel like we should probably take that as a nice place to wrap it up. While we've got the two of you still here, do you want to tell people where they can reach you? Fire away, script.
Yeah, first of all, you can reach Josiah here at this channel. DigiByte updates. Probably
reach you.
Yeah, probably the most impactful DigiByte information you can get right now regularly is Josiah's channel. And then, you know, I'd probably be like, you know, I probably haven't been doing as many videos on Digiverse as, you know, on YouTube as much as I can because of my job, but I have been part of the spaces. And I think that's what I wanted to mention, that I wanted, you know, the DigiByte awareness team to get involved with the spaces on Twitter, you know, and just kind of avoid some of the shots that, you know, that already do it already, you know, and just kind of like, you know, kind of bring the peace in it all and try to have the understanding what we know is what we know, and that's what it is. And you know, some of the, you know, reach out, I would like to be a part of that, since I am a DigiByte core member here recently. I don't know when I joined, but like the beginning of the year. But I would like to see the DigiByte awareness team Twitter channel to create scheduled tweets so the DigiByte community can come together and talk. I know, I believe.
So where can we see the DigiByte awareness team then, if you'd rather?
What? I'm sorry.
Where's the best place for us to follow you and the DigiByte awareness team then?
Well, the DigiByte awareness team, just follow it on Twitter, you know, the Twitter handle. But for me, it's just, you know, Scripts Guy on Twitter, Digiverse on YouTube.
Cool.
Gotcha. Cool rebrand. And I'm Crypty Girl on all platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit. And if you see someone using my photos that doesn't have the handle Crypty Girl, it's not me. It's a scammer. Report and block them.
What's up with that, by the way?
I have a ton of them. Because I'm like I guess I have a great face to scam people because I'm very trustworthy looking.
You know you've reached fame when you've got impersonators, right? What are you gonna do? It's
So yeah. Anyway, thank you, Josiah. Thank you,
cool.
Script.
Thank you so much
You
to
guys
both
are
of you for being
rock
on here, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, this has been the 250th DigiByte update. I'm aware we haven't covered quite everything we wanted to get to, but we're knocking on 3 hours now, so yeah, we should probably wrap that up.
I gotta get off here.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a great one. Until next time, take care. We'll see you soon.